local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, January 27th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, minus 21, in Smiths Falls, minus 13. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. If you don't live or work in the downtown of Ottawa, you're asked to stay away this weekend. That's a message from Ottawa Police as they prepare for the trucker convoy protest to roll into the city core. Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson is coming up shortly on the Rob Snow Show discussing the impact this will have on the city, but with the police prep. Here's City News reporter Jason Wright.
The message is for people who live in other areas to avoid downtown Ottawa if they can, especially by vehicle. But Police Chief Peter Slowly says if you live downtown or own a business, go about your life as normal.
We don't have any information, threat or risk information to suggest that people or business owners need to barricade themselves into their homes or their businesses, or that they need to close their businesses.
Police say predicting the number of protesters on the streets over the course of the weekend is very challenging and changes from hour to hour. The city councillor for downtown Ottawa issued a statement connecting members of the convoy to, quote, militant racist, sexist, and homophobic groups. Ottawa police say they are aware of other parallel protests who plan to demonstrate downtown at the same time. Convoy organizers insist their protest will be a peaceful one. The truckers and their supporters are expected to begin arriving in the area tomorrow. Jason White, City News.
City News time, 9:01, and now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
We'll get into a south wind and climb to our high, -7. Some flurries mainly for the afternoon and evening, and 2 centimeters could accumulate by tonight. -17 for the low for tomorrow, Saturday and Sunday. Plenty of sunshine, but highs still quite cold. -14 Friday, -13 Saturday, and about -11 on Sunday. The average high is -6. For today, the high, -7.
And right now in Ottawa, -21 is -13. in Smiths Falls. Ontario's Chief Medical Officer of Health is set to provide an update today on the COVID-19 situation in our province. Dr. Kieran Moore's media briefing will come after the provincial government's announced its plan last week to gradually lift public health measures. It's also Moore's last regularly scheduled public appearance before restrictions are set to ease. That's coming up on Monday. Indoor social gathering limits set to increase from 5 to 10. Restaurants will be able to open their dining rooms at 50% capacity, again coming up on Monday. All eyes are now on Russia to see how it will respond after the U.S. rejected President Vladimir Putin's main demand to resolve the crisis over Ukraine. A Kremlin spokesperson says there is little ground for optimism, but added dialogue is still possible. Ottawa police are thanking the public for their help tracking down a man wanted for a second-degree murder charge. Police arrested 28-year-old Devin Wynn this morning. He was wanted in connection to the stabbing death of 40-year-old Jaco Partridge. He died in hospital from injuries received at a Hannah Street address early Saturday morning. Wynn is scheduled to appear in court today. City News time, 9:03. Amy Schneider's historic Jeopardy winning streak has come to an end. The Oakland contestant's 40-game run finished yesterday when she was beaten by a librarian from Chicago. She's also the first openly transgender person to make it to the Tournament of Champions. Schneider says she enjoyed every minute of this ride.
It's just been really great to know that I've been able to, do kind of a lot of good as I'm doing it, just by being myself and just by kind of representing my community.
Schneider ended up winning over $1.3 million on Jeopardy! I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's got the news and the views.
He's got views on the news.
It's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
You know, it's kind of crazy that it can be -21 and the extreme cold warning is over. But I guess we've reached that point of winter now, with faces so numb that -21, it's just cold. It's not extremely cold. Good morning. Welcome to the Rob Snow Show on City News. We are all out. We are all out today. all the way till noon. We're covering the news. We're getting your views on the news. We're going to cover a lot of ground between now and noon. Coming up in just a few minutes' time, it's the Mayor of Ottawa, Jim Watson, back on the Rob Snow Show. He delivered his final State of the City address yesterday. Ask him how that felt. Ryan Reynolds going to get a street named after him. Dr. Vera Etches will get the key to the city. And we'll talk about the city's preparations for the Freedom Convoy. Freedom Convoy moving into the GTA sometime today. And here in Ottawa, it promises to be a weekend. I don't know what kind of weekend it's going to be, but it promises to be a weekend, maybe one we won't soon forget. So all of that is coming up with Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson. Then every Thursday morning, we sink our teeth into everything that's been happening in provincial matters, in provincial affairs, Ontario politics this week. And it's been a week. Update today from Dr. Moore, the province's Chief Medical Officer of Health, because there's going to be some easing of restrictions next week. And remember, this is how it works, under the current, latest and greatest new and improved reopening plan from the Ford government. It's all supposed to unfold in 3-week increments. Open up this much, wait 3 weeks. Open up a little bit more, wait another 3 weeks. And then I guess whatever's not open, you open it by the middle of March. Fingers crossed, right? Fingers crossed. Lots of fine print in there. So we'll get into that story today. And election intrigue. Election intrigue. All the opposition leaders, they're on the record now. And they say they won't prop up a Doug Ford minority government. Well, duh. Is anyone surprised to hear that? What would, I don't know, what would you expect the leader of the Liberal Party to say ahead of the Ontario election? What would you expect the leader of the New Democrats to say ahead of the provincial election? Sure, we can work with Doug Ford. He's not really that bad. I'm sure there are plenty of ways we can cooperate with Doug Ford. No, of course they can't say that. They can't say that. What are you going to hear from Horvath and Del Duca? Doug Ford is the devil. Doug Ford is the devil. Doug Ford hates your family, hates your children. He hates your children's teacher. He hates the nurses. He's only in it for himself and his rich buddies. Hey, am I wrong? That's what the leaders of the opposition are going to be saying ahead of the election. Oh, sure, yeah, we're open to working with Doug Ford, Beelzebub. Hey, it's always been that way in the run-up to this election. It's always been majority government or toast for Doug Ford and the PCs. Now, maybe that message actually works to Doug Ford's advantage, because it may, I'm not saying it will, I'm saying it could, it may, possibly, discipline the PC vote with some of the kind of stragglers, people on the fence. Well, do I really want Premier Horvath? And who is this Del Duca guy anyway? We shall see. I'll tell you, it's going to be fascinating to watch the next few months in Ontario politics. As well this morning, John Wright, back on the show. It's been a while, but I can't wait to speak with one of Canada's most experienced pollsters, Maru Public Opinion. His firm has done a poll for City News on the convoy. And survey says 72% of Canadians believe the border should be flat out closed to truckers unless they are either fully vaccinated or can show proof of a negative COVID tests taken within the previous 72 hours. Okay, 72%. So, by far, the majority of Canadians. That's what they think. Only 28% said they fully support allowing unvaccinated truckers to cross the U.S.-Canada border without any difficulty in order to deliver their cargo. So that's obviously a story that, we've been following that story all week. I first heard about that convoy Friday morning. It was Friday morning, a week ago tomorrow. And look at how that has just taken off as a news story. So it's great timing to have fresh polling data on it from John. So that's coming up a little later in the show. Really looking forward to speaking with Professor Elliot Tepper again this morning. He's with Carleton University, a longtime professor of international affairs, back with us on a weekly basis now for a segment we call The World with Elliot Tepper. Because I have to ask him. I'm going to try. Okay, with me here, folks. Okay, deep breaths. Calm down, Rob. Calm down, Rob. Okay? I have to ask him about Canada's response to this free and sovereign country that could be invaded any day now by a brutal, thuggish regime. We could all wake up one morning, turn on the news, and be watching Putin's army rolling into that country and rolling over that country. And I don't know. I find what Mr. Trudeau's government is offering to our Ukrainian friends, to the Ukrainian people, it's weak. It's weak. We will not send any weapons. Goodness, no. We'll send binoculars. Binoculars. What? So they can see the tanks? We'll slap a picture of the former hapless Minister of Defense. We'll slap his picture up on Twitter, holding up a sign that says, "We stand with Ukraine." But no weapons. But the thing that doesn't sit well with me is the fact we sell billions and billions of dollars worth of weapons to Saudi Arabia. And as I said in my Snow and 60 commentary this morning, both the Harper government and the Trudeau government, they have defended that deal for years, that LAV deal, to sell LAVs to the Saudis. And all sorts of other weapons to the Saudis. Because we let weapons brokers broker arms deals to the Saudis. Country with one of the worst human rights records. Weapons that are being used to crush any dissent in Saudi Arabia and being used in the war in Yemen. Canadian weapons. But our friends in Ukraine, where they are fighting for democracy, they are fighting for human rights, they are fighting against the darkness of tyranny. We'll send them binoculars and best wishes. It's all too much for me. Thank goodness Professor Tepper is, he's so much more experienced and level-headed than I am on these matters. He'll join me at 11:30. In the middle of it all, there's you. There's the Talkback Hour, hour of opinion, hour of phone calls, hottest hour of talk radio in town. Today, I want to talk about the leadership of the Conservative Party of Canada. Today is the day that the Conservatives are going to get this post-election report. It's called, "Why We Lost the Election? Let's Count the Ways." Okay, I don't know if that's what it's called. That should be what it's called. Here's what I want to ask you to get the conversation going at 10 o'clock at 750-1310. 750-1310, 613-750-1310. It's an easy question, okay? Do you think this will ever happen? Prime Minister Aaron O'Toole Can you picture it? Do you see it? Will it ever come to pass? Prime Minister Aaron O'Toole. What do you think? Think that'll ever happen, or is it just not in the cards? And if that's your answer, do you think the party needs a new leader? If that's your answer, who should the new leader of the Conservative Party be? That's at 10 o'clock. At 750-1310, the Mayor of Ottawa, Jim Watson, is next on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
Community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
And 1310 AM.
Good morning, Mayor Watson.
Good morning, Rob. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thanks. Happy New Year. I'm not sure if we've talked.
No, we have not talked for a while. It's great to hear from you. Boy, there's still a lot of snow, still a lot of big snowbanks so long after the snowfall, Mr.
I know. I was listening to your weather forecast, and you know we're Canadian when we're excited about -7 as a high.
Oh, yeah,
today.
yeah. We'll take it.
Really?
But, I still see the crews out there. Boy, it's been a long... This has been a long cleanup after this storm, though.
Yeah, it has. It's just, we have 13,000 kilometers of road in the city of Ottawa, and I think 6,000 kilometers of trails and sidewalks. So it does take time. We try to get to those major areas in the downtown core to get the snowbanks removed from those main streets so people can get into shops and so on. And there are a lot of narrower streets in the old parts of the city. They have to get done because they're impassable by an ambulance or a fire truck or something like that. So people have been very patient. I think I've been dealing with snow plow issues for about 30 years.
Sure.
In my career.
Yeah. I mean, I was driving down Main Street this morning, and I felt like I was going down a slide or something. It was the snowbanks are so high, and the street is so narrow there, and.
I can say, I received, I sent out a tweet to thank the crews.
For
the
sure.
Day after the snowfall, because they did a really good job of getting to the streets quickly, and I got about 400 or 500 likes, and I've only received about 10 complaints about snow removal. So I think most people understand. Every street can't be the first one to get done. You got to prioritize it, bus routes and emergency routes and hospital routes and so on, and then you get into the residential streets.
Okay. So you had your last... I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, go ahead.
Sorry, just on my street, there's snowbanks, but there's no sidewalks, so there'll be no snow removal on the street like the one I live on. It's mostly the ones that have sidewalks and narrow streets where people are required to park on the street because there's no other option.
Sure thing, yeah. So you had your last State of the City address yesterday to start the kind of the regular council session. How did that feel?
Well, I said at the time, Rob, it was sort of bittersweet because I always enjoy the speech. It's a chance to throw out a few new items, but mostly look back, in this case, over the last 3 terms of council. And, it took about 45 minutes. I didn't think it was going to be that long, but when we started going through all the list of things that we'd accomplished working with the business community and labor and members of council and other levels of government, it's actually a pretty long list of things that I wanted to remind people that, we should be proud of these investments, whether it's Innovation Center at Bayview or a new Ottawa Art Gallery or new recreation centers in Cumberland and Canada and Barrhaven, the work we've done on rural roads, Lansdowne's revitalization. A lot to be proud of. Obviously, a lot of challenges. LRT, housing, affordable housing continues to be a problem. We've got to get that wait list down significantly over the next couple of years.
Yeah. So one of my great fears about the city, especially inside the Greenbelt, Mr. Mayor, is that it's becoming a city only for the affluent, and that if you're not affluent, you won't be able to afford to live in Ottawa anymore. I'm really afraid about that. Are you afraid about that?
Yeah, we're still, miles ahead in terms of affordability compared to cities like Vancouver and Toronto, but we're edging up there. And the Premier and the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing last week hosted a housing affordability conference, and they're expected to release a report, I think, at the end of this month, the 29th, I believe, of this month, with a series of recommendations on how we can bring the cost of housing that is being built down, whether it's cutting red tape or cutting fees and so on. We don't want to go through that process and do that and not see the price go down and just see the developer keep that money as an increased profit. But there's no question, Ottawa is a desirable place to live. On average, our staff tell me about 26 people a day move to Ottawa. So that pushes prices up. It doesn't seem like a lot, 26, but when you amortize that over 365 days, thousands and thousands of people want to move here. And I've met on numerous occasions, mostly pre-COVID, because you don't meet that many people these days. I've met at least 5 or 6 people from Toronto who have sold their house for, $1.7, $1.8 million and bought an even better place here for, $700,000 or $800,000 and banked the rest for their retirement. So people want to move to Ottawa, which is a good thing, but it also causes pressure on the real estate market. And you see these bidding wars and people, buying sight unseen just to get that house or get that condo.
Yeah. Well, in your time and my time, we've seen a few protests in this city because this is a city of protest. It's right. The nation's capital. But as the mayor of Ottawa, ahead of this convoy arriving in our city, what are your feelings and what is your message to the people of Ottawa and to the people coming to Ottawa?
Well, to those coming to Ottawa, obviously in a free society, people have the right to protest, but it has to be done peacefully. Encourage them to be respectful. They're coming into a community, a neighborhood where people live and work, and respect the rules. Don't block both lanes of a road. Make sure that you have proper access for emergency vehicles. follow the rules and follow the laws and be peaceful. And, to the people who live and work in the downtown, our chief of police that I was briefed with Chief Slowly just yesterday, they're not telling people to board up their windows and so on. There's no evidence that the protest to date has been violent, but I think you're going to see lots of vehicles, and these large vehicles take up a lot of space. So, I hope they keep in mind that we have to maintain one access route to ensure that people can get ambulance treatment if they need it, or police or fire.
Okay.
And if people, can work from home on Saturday in particular, that's what we understand is the big rally is supposed to be about noon on Parliament Hill. I don't. At the end of the day, we want to make sure that our residents are taken care of and the people that are coming here are taken care of. But it's going to be a challenge. So if you can avoid the downtown, please do so. I hate to say that because it's counterintuitive, because we've been encouraging people to come and shop local, and these people have been through a lot, with their small businesses, particularly with, employees not working from their office. They've lost a lot of business hanging on by a thread, and the last thing we needed was to advise people to not come and shop downtown, but that's probably the safest bet at this stage.
Okay. For people who are not aware, when there's a major demonstration, because there have been some big ones, when there's a major demonstration in Ottawa, what are municipal officials, like the Ottawa Police Service, for example, what are they responsible for versus, say, the RCMP, for example? How does that work, Mr.
Well,
Mayor?
the division really is Parliament Hill and federal buildings like the Supreme Court, where the RCMP have responsibility, and in particular on the Hill, it's the Parliamentary Protective Service, which is now really part of the RCMP. And Ottawa Police takes the lead in coordinating, works with the OPP, for instance, on the highways, works with military police at DND, and works with the PPS and RCMP on federal properties. So we have a large police presence. It has to be coordinated. That's the role of the City of Ottawa Police Department. The challenge is a lot of protests tend to be a little better organized than what's coming up, because, I think Kelly Egan had an interesting tweet the other day. He said, we basically have no public toilet infrastructure, and normally when these protests take place, the organizers are responsible for working with the city to get porta potties, for instance. I don't know if that's happened, and there are only so many restaurants that will be open where people can use the washroom. So you think of something as basic as that. If the organizers don't think about it, it becomes a problem, a public health problem.
Okay. Just a few quick comments here. Bill 21, I'm surprised by your stance on this motion about Bill 21 and not being willing to contribute to the defense for people who are standing against this state-sponsored discrimination in the province of Quebec. Why are you taking this position?
Well, we already as a council about 2 years ago passed a resolution condemning it, and I fully condemn it. I think it's outrageous behavior on the part of the Quebec government, and it's pandering, unfortunately. But at the end of the day, it does not fall under our jurisdiction. We have certain responsibilities, as does the federal government. They should be the ones appealing this to the Supreme Court. And the easiest thing to do when you're an elected official, Rob, is to spend other people's money. So I don't support taking $100,000 out of a fund that is required for emergencies and unforeseen expenses and sending it to, I don't even know who Councillor Deans wants the money to go to and how much money is needed, where does the surplus go. I just don't think fundamentally property taxes should be going to fight other levels of government.
Just one more quick thing. Speaking of Kelly Egan's column, I was thinking about this immediately once I heard it from Councillor Eglai. Agnes Warda, Vice President Glenn's Community Association, says residents fear possible contamination from fuel runoff from the Eastway tank explosion. This community, I was surprised to learn, because it's basically in the city, is still on wells and septic. Are there a lot of communities like that still, neighborhoods like that still in Ottawa?
Not close to the urban core. Obviously, in our rural townships, almost everyone's on well and septic, but it's a unique, wonderful community. And I know Agnes very well. She's a great spokesperson for her community. But it is one of these oddities, if you will, that they've never, for whatever reason, been put on the old Nepean or regional government water and septic system.
Okay. That is strange. Okay.
They also have just in that vicinity, there's an actual sand dune as well that Keith Eglai told me about. We went out to visit it right in the middle of the city. There's a sand dune.
Sand dune. Okay. All right. Mr. Mayor, look, very generous with your time this morning. Great to get caught up, and we'll speak soon. All the best. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye-bye.
Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson. Ontario politics this week follows the news here on City News.
One for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, January 27th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now we're in Ottawa -20 and Smiths Falls -11. Here's what's making news this hour. The police force continues to work with its partners, RCMP, Parliament Protection, even military police on this trucker protest headed our way and scheduled to stop in Toronto's area this afternoon. Now, police are asking people who do not have to be downtown tomorrow, Saturday or Sunday to avoid the area if possible. Mayor Jim Watson says he hopes protesters respect the law and don't block access for things like emergency vehicles. A planned gradual reopening of some businesses in Ontario begins on Monday, January 31st, today. The Chief Medical Officer of Health for the province will address the media. Dr. Kieran Moore updating the COVID situation ahead of that first step by the province. An Ottawa man now in Calgary who is looking for paramedics who saved his life after a stabbing in 1994, we told you this story last week, has found one of those paramedics thanks to City News. This story coming up for you at 10 o'clock this morning. City News time, 9:34. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's the opinionated Ottawa icon.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Okay, so the gang's all here. Lindsay Maskell is a Liberal strategist and is a former advisor to Premier McGuinty. Good morning, Lindsay.
Good morning, Rob.
And Andrew Brander is a vice president with Crestview Strategy, former advisor to the Ford government. Good morning, Andrew.
Hey.
And it's time for Ontario politics this week. Now, Lindsay, I was reading about you in the papers, Lindsay. You made it to the newspapers this week in a Robert Benzie story. You're going to be part of the campaign for the Liberal team. Is that right?
I am.
What are you doing, Lindsay? What are you doing? What's your role there?
Well, I've decided I'm getting off the bench on this campaign and getting involved, and I'm helping co-chair the ground game part of the central campaign for the Liberals.
Okay. Co-chair.
Getting off the bench.
Getting off the bench. Well, I mean, she has a bad ankle, right? She has a bad ankle, so she's been on the disabled list. She's been on the DL.
The veteran title from Rob Benzie.
She sure did. Yeah, she did. Yeah.
I thought that was interesting because I do realize I worked there for 10 years, but I also joke that it was like I was a child and then all of a sudden I was a veteran. So
sometimes that happens.
That goes in politics. You're still a child when you're a 30-year-old woman in politics, and then all of a sudden you're a veteran. So that was a fun transition.
Yeah. Sometimes you look around and you're like, wow, I used to be the youngest person here, and now I'm the oldest person. How did that happen? So you said ground game? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
All right. So what does that person do?
So there is a campaign director, and then there's two streams. There would be the messaging, so everything that's the communications, that sort of air war side of things, debate, messaging, communications. And then the other side is the organization, the ridings, the candidates, the winning the campaign on the ground in each individual riding, and making sure that those ridings are prepared for an election for June 2nd. Right.
Is that like the GOTV stuff, like get off the vote stuff?
Everything that's from... Straight from training to making sure everybody's in place and the candidates have what they need, to including the entire GOTV strategy, which is completely different than it was 10 years ago with early voting and people changing the way they vote now.
Right. Okay. What about you, Andrew? Are you benched or?
I'm not benched. I have a good friend of mine who I've known for about 15 years running in Brampton North.
Okay.
So I've been helping out on his campaign. It's a seat that we don't hold right now, but when a friend calls, you answer the call. I'm sure the same thing is exactly what Lindsay's saying right now. I'm sure a good friend of hers gave her a phone call and said, do you really want to do this? And she probably said, oh, well, probably not, but I will for you.
Well, I will say it is even great. Like I have done since I left, because I did the central campaigns in 2003, 2007, and 2011. And after that, I went back and did local campaigns like what you're going to do, Andrew, and it's always so fun, right? So it's nice to get back to that too and find your love for it again.
I wonder at this point in time, here we're end of January, middle of winter, lots of snow, all this stuff. Are people paying attention to it? Do they know that there's an election coming up? What's your sense of things right now, Lindsay?
It is shocking to people when you tell them, it's 120-something days away, or that it's June 2nd, because there is just something about that flip of the calendar to an election year. It means something to people in politics, but the general public, they're, and especially with how much news has just been dominated by COVID, they haven't thought about it. And that would normally be the case, but especially in this type of an election, which is a little what we saw in the federal election as well, which made it difficult for the opposition candidates. But it's shocking to people when I tell them how soon it is.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
What's your sense of it, Andrew?
Yeah, I mean,
awareness.
As Lindsay sort of said there, I can speak from a local perspective. It's really hard to get people at the doors, and not only in the cold weather, but also just get people's attention on this, and in the era of COVID, people even more than before, just not answering their doors.
Oh, yeah.
So, it's just hard to have those conversations in general, let alone the awareness issue, which certainly is a struggle at this point. People have bills to pay, restrictions to worry about, businesses to worry about. They're thinking about other things, not an election.
Right. Okay. All right. So the opposition leaders are certainly thinking about the election. They're already working from the assumption that it's going to be a minority government, and they can't wait to defeat it. So they say they're not going to prop up a Doug Ford minority government. But really, are you surprised by that, Andrew? Are you really surprised that they would say that?
I am not surprised,
I'm not surprised.
that they would do it. I am a little bit surprised to hear them say it this early. So credit where credit's due. I appreciate the fact that both leaders are being upfront with voters and acknowledging that a vote for the Liberals is a vote for the NDP. It's also acknowledging, though, I think a little bit how far left the Liberals have gone. And I think what this announcement this early says to me is it sends a signal that the Liberals really are actually have not necessarily decided that it's going to be a minority government. But it's another signal that they really want those NDP seats back. And they're going to say anything and work with anyone to get those. So I think it's a pretty risky move for the NDP, or for the Liberals rather, to come out this early and say that it's a long way.
So should you be saying instead? Should you be saying instead? Well, we're not talking about a Ford. I'm running to be the premier. Like, we're not talking about a Ford minority government. We're going to defeat Doug Ford. Is that what Mr. Del Duca should be saying?
Well, I think so.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, you're in these situations, you should be running for the top job.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't put your
don't even entertain it. Right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Lindsay, what do you think? Is this is this a miscalculation by these leaders to be even talking about a minority scenario?
Yeah, you need to show that, first of all, this is something Andrew said. This is the thing the Ontario voters decide, right? So you have to show that you are interviewing for the top job and showing that you could be premier. So those are scenarios that are not even if you think about in the federal election, Jagmeet getting asked those questions 3 days out and was still campaigning for the top job. So you need to show your strengths if you want to have that role, and it doesn't it doesn't line up to voters that they think that it means they're going to work with this person or they're going to work with this person. But the one real benefit of this, and I do have to say, no matter how it shakes out, a minority government is so interesting to see how people are going to work together. And this is also something voters might need to think about, is who can work with people. So it's an interesting opportunity. You can't calculate these things. You never know. When 2011 we ended up with a minority government by one seat. Yeah. Right? So these aren't things
I remember
that
McGuinty. I remember just on that. I remember this like it was during a question period. He was getting heckled. Premier McGuinty was getting heckled. That he was being accused. Oh, you're just trying to lure somebody across the aisle, to cross the floor. And Premier McGuinty said, "We'll take anyone. We'll take anyone. Anyone except Yakubuski." We do. Which I thought was hilarious. We'll take anyone except Yakubuski. They were always giving each other the gears, those two, Yakubuski and McGuinty. But nevertheless, yeah, okay. I don't know. It's interesting. I don't even know why anybody's even entertaining this. But what would I expect to hear from Stephen Del Duca? Oh, sure, I can work with Doug Ford. I can work, or Andrea Horvath. Oh, sure, I can work with Doug Ford. No, like it's a non-starter. It's a non-starter. But let's move along. If it ends up as a PC minority, which right now would be the most likely outcome according to some of these polls, what are some of the possible scenarios? What are some of the possible scenarios, Andrew?
Well, what prompting this conversation does now is, as Lindsay said, it inevitably avoids the leaders getting the question 4 days before the election, which is almost like clockwork, what happens. that should the party that wins the most seats govern. And so I think this is the biggest challenge actually for the Liberals, because despite what Lindsay just said about working with people, I'd be interested to hear her thoughts about working with Andrea Horvath, who, as we know, Lindsay it's Lindsay's favorite topic.
Yeah.
So look, I think there's going to be challenges, and to be honest, for Del Duca, in the riding that he's running to represent, the NDP, the official opposition last time, didn't even crack 15% of the vote. Now he is going to the people of Ontario and saying to them that he's willing to cut deals and work with the NDP, which has put forward policies that are high spending, high tax, inflation agnostic, and I don't think that that's really what the people of Ontario are looking for. But ultimately, he's saying there's two choices. So it's going to be a rocky road for him to have to negotiate that. It's not the Premier of Ontario saying the same thing. So I think it's something that the NDP and the Liberals are going to have to answer for.
Okay. What do you think, Lindsay?
Well, first of all, that is not what Stephen Del Duca said. He also, this is also a place where we've been before, where the Conservatives say, these two parties are exactly the same. The big problem for Doug Ford is that he actually has, I would say, to answer your question, there's a worst case scenario and a best case scenario. Our worst case scenario is, remember that the number of independents sitting in the legislature right now are people that have now aligned with, the Conservatives that have split off and have created a new party. Doug Ford lost 1 in 9 of, I think it's like 1 in 9 or 1 in 8 of his members to a further right-wing party or as an independent, and there's a large group of them. So if we were, the 2011 example, if you have just one or two, a minority by 1 or 2 seats, all of a sudden those right-wing conservatives that you kicked out of your party will become the most important people to you, which makes me very nervous about who a government could be negotiating with in terms of a path forward. The best case scenario is when you think about what are the fundamental things everybody in Ontario would agree on, and government has to work together and get it done. And that was the message to Canadians in this past federal election. And we've seen governments manage in minority government effectively before if they have an ability to work together. So there will always be those hyper-partisan things they want to get done that they don't get done. But generally, they still have to keep everything moving. And that is the best case scenario. But the worst case scenario, I think, for a lot of Ontarians is Doug Ford all of a sudden is back to people like Randy Hillier, Roman Barber, those people who he thinks are too far right for his party, and they become his new dance partners.
Okay, we'll be right back. This is Ontario Politics This Week. Rob Snow Show on City News.
It's such a beautiful field because it's all natural. I'm able to talk to a lot of people who are going through different journeys of health where they really don't know where to start, where to begin. And I'm happy and grateful to have all this knowledge where I can actually help them and guide them. So, of course, medications have a great place in our system, but even so do natural therapies, which have been around for centuries and centuries. Like, old time, ancient times, everything, herbs grew, everything was done with nature, all healing was done with nature. So I'm totally in love with all the elements with nature. In our beautiful village of Manatik, the Manatik Natural Market, you can find tremendous different things. So we have herbs, we have vitamins, we have natural body care, we do infrared sauna therapy, nutrition counseling, acupuncture, Bowen therapy, energy healing. So we're like a wellness hub along with being a full health food store. We are 1 year into pandemic since it started last year in March. It was a shock. Usually I see things coming, and I definitely did not see that coming. Golden Root is a product that I created 4 years ago, actually for my kids, just for immune system, overall health. and it just took off with certain friends of mine who had cancer or some severe issues, and they started finding that it was really helping them from different tests they had done with their doctor, and I knew I had something really special. So then I went through the proper procedure of being able to sell it. So it's actually, I'm not allowed to make it anymore in my house 4 years ago, and it is made in a Health Canada approved lab, and then it comes to me. And what Golden Root is a formulation of turmeric, ginger, lavender, oregano, and black pepper, all food grade, which is the most bioavailable turmeric in the market right now for pain, inflammation, digestion, immune system, concussion, liver health, and brain health. So, and it tastes like salad dressing. We do a lot of in-house, so we make our in-house concoctions of teas. You can come here, tell us what your health issues are, and we can blend it right there. And there's some that are already prepared beforehand for sleeping, for anxiety, for different things. And in that bar, we basically make cold brew teas and cold brew nitrogen coffee. And again, it's all local. Everything we do is local, and as many herbs we can find locally as well. If a client can't come out, we'll go out of our way to deliver it. And you're getting that personal touch when you come in. If you have an issue, we will listen and help you. We're very, very active in the community, so we would like the same thing back for the community to come to.
Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, look at the time. It flies by when you two are with us. It's Ontario Politics this week. Lindsay Maskell and Andrew Brander, our guests. $10 a day childcare. Again, Ontario stands out here as the only jurisdiction that has yet to reach an agreement with the federal government. What are the chances that it gets done before the election, Andrew?
It's going to get done. Everyone knows the deal's coming. Everyone knows Ontario is the last province to reach the deal, and everyone knows Ontario wants more from this deal, which I think is going to make for a better deal for the people of Ontario. Politically, obviously, a delay moves the deal closer to the election, means it's fresher in people's minds, but it also cements the Premier's brand as someone that fights for the province, not against other people. I think it's clear from the feud in the earlier relationship, fighting with the federal government wasn't as popular as it was expected to be. So I think they've, taken a new communications perspective on this. We've seen it through COVID regulations. We've seen it now on negotiations with childcare. I'd expect to see a similar tack when it comes to the negotiations around the health transfer. And I think this is, the Premier demonstrating that he's a excellent negotiator for the best deal for Ontario.
Okay. Lindsay?
Well, I saw
what are you laughing at? What are you laughing at?
I saw kids negotiating something on a playground yesterday, and I realized how much kids know about negotiating.
Okay.
So I think those kids would know that if you're last and you're staring down the barrel of an election in under 120 days, you're not getting a better deal. When everyone else has gone before you. Even Jason Kenney has, now months ago had signed on to a deal. So there, I think somewhere, those early conservatives in the middle of the pack might have, thought that they had some stronger negotiating position. The problem is that those that signed on very early to these agreements have already seen money flowing within 3 months to families who need this money for their childcare. So the important thing for voters to know is that this delay for better political timing and hoping that people won't remember that they could have had this a long time ago, much like the minimum wage issue, that they'll get good news even though we should have had this good news a long time ago, that there will be some kind of bump from that. But again, the people who signed on to agreements already have money in their pocket, already affecting people's day-to-day lives. So this is, it's going to happen, and it will happen. And I think that Premier Ford has missed the boat on this timing, and it will not. People will be happy to have an agreement, have the funds, but I do not.
But he's not going to get a bounce from it. He won't get a bounce or anything from it. He can't spin it as a victory.
He can spin it as you're finally going to get something you should have had months ago.
Oh, I see. Okay.
He will have.
Okay, go ahead, Andrew. Go ahead.
I don't think Lindsay's argument about waiting a couple months is a compelling argument for Ontarians who, quite frankly, have been waiting for this program from the federal Liberal government for 20 years. So having to wait another 2 months. Really don't think that that's going to be a compelling argument for people in the province.
Okay, 2 minutes left. These upstarts, Ontario First Party, New Blue Party is, Wright of the PC party. Are they going to have an impact on the election, do you think? Andrew? What do you think, Andrew?
No.
No?
I really don't think so. I mean, I think it could, have a little bit of an impact in perhaps a riding or two. Look, starting a new party is really difficult. To do that in one election cycle is almost impossible. You have to, all the back end of creating riding associations, electoral districts, and then organizing each one of those in every single one of the ridings across the province. It's a huge lift. It takes a lot of time, a lot of money in order to do so. And I really don't see the splits in the ridings coming down to the same degree that we like to talk about federally, with the PPC being a serious consideration or option. As well, I think we are in large part going to be on the other side of this, and people will be voting less on COVID restrictions and more so on a path forward. And if people are looking at a path forward, they have to look at viable options of people who can actually form government.
Okay. What do you think, Lindsay?
I think the issue is that some of these people representing those parties or as independents actually have their own name recognition in that riding, and people have voted for them before, so it does present a problem for the Conservatives, especially in ridings that have a Liberal-Conservative split. So if you look at Cambridge or York Centre, those ridings, I would be very concerned if I was the Conservative seeing any kind of split there. And so there's some ridings to watch for you with, and I think it's because those people have been elected before. People know their name and they've made a name for themselves, and they will get a lot of support from those people that want to rally around that sort of far right positioning.
Well, great to talk to both of you today. Gas, by the way, in Toronto is going to hit $1.50 tomorrow, just so you know. Go get some gas today. We'll talk soon.
Have a great week.
You too. Lindsay Maskell, Andrew Brander, Ontario politics this week. Rob Snow Show Talkback Hour. Do you ever see it happening? This is my question for you during the Talkback Hour after the 10 o'clock news. Prime Minister Aaron O'Toole. Can you see that happening? Prime Minister Aaron O'Toole. This is the Rob Snow Show. Talkback Hour next. This is City News.
1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, January 27th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, minus 20, Smiths Falls, minus 11. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Officials are urging you to avoid Ottawa's downtown this weekend as thousands of truckers expected to bring their vaccine mandate protest to the city core. Here's City News reporter Jason Wright.
The message from police is that people who live downtown should go about their lives as usual, but people who don't live in the core are being urged to avoid heading downtown, especially by car. Trying to get a handle on what the city and police are in for this weekend has been challenging. Deputy Police Chief Steve Bell says the situation has been changing hour to hour and day to day.
To give you an accurate number of who's going to be on the street on Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, or Sunday morning is extremely challenging and difficult right now.
There's been concern about how peaceful or orderly this demonstration will be. Convoy organizers have been adamant this will be a peaceful demonstration. The city councillor for the area issued a statement saying that several members of this group are connected to militant racist, sexist, and homophobic groups. And police noted there may be other groups who come downtown to demonstrate at the same time. The convoy is expected to start arriving in our area tomorrow afternoon. Jason White, City News.
Now, before the truckers hit Ottawa, Toronto and Kingston are in the path today. Here's City News reporter Carl Hansky, the latest from just outside Toronto.
Truckers taking part in this Freedom Convoy, as it's being called, will gather here at Vaughan Mills Mall. And those who work near this massive mall are preparing for lots of traffic delays.
Chaos.
You're expecting chaos?
Oh, yeah. Because of the convoy.
So what's your plan?
Make the best of it.
The truckers are expected to gather here at noon, putting a dent in this man's shopping plans.
So I was planning to go to Bass Pro, but I guess not today.
Yeah. Maybe stay away from the mall today.
Oh, yeah.
From here, the convoy is expected to go south on Highway 400 to the 407 East, then on to Ottawa. But the truckers and other supporters will be arriving in the GTA from all directions. So the OPP says drivers should prepare for delays on all our major highways. At Vaughan Mills Mall, Carl Hansky, City News.
City News time, 10:02. Now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
We'll get into a south wind and climb to our high, minus 7. Some flurries mainly for the afternoon and evening, and 2 centimeters could accumulate by tonight. Minus 17 for the low for tomorrow, Saturday, and Sunday. Plenty of sunshine, but highs still quite cold. Minus 14 Friday, minus 13 Saturday, and about minus 11 on Sunday. The average highs minus 6. For today, the high, minus 7.
Now, right now in Ottawa, minus 20. In Smiths Falls, it's minus 11. The Prime Minister is isolating for the next 5 days. Justin Trudeau exposed to COVID-19. It's the second time the PM has been exposed to the virus and had to self-isolate. He says he will work from home for the next 5 days. City News time, 10:03. A city in our province wanted others to follow suit and contribute money to a court challenge to Quebec's Bill 21. The bill bans religious symbols being worn by people in positions of authority. Ottawa councillors Diane Deans and Molson King brought a motion forward to City Council for up to $100,000 to be donated. The mayor rejected that. Jim Watson tells the Rob Snow Show he fully backs the fight against the bill, but not using city money.
I fully condemn it. I think it's outrageous behavior on the part of the Quebec government, and it's pandering, unfortunately. But at the end of the day, it does not fall under our jurisdiction. We have certain responsibilities, as does the federal government. They should be the ones appealing this to the Supreme Court.
Watson says that money should not be taken from funds that are designed to cover any local city emergencies. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
It's time to talk back
on the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Yes, have your say and call now. It is the Talk Back Hour on the Rob Snow Show on City News, and here's what I want to ask you this morning. Would love to hear your answers. Do you think this will ever happen? Prime Minister Aaron O'Toole. Do you think that'll ever happen? Do you think Aaron O'Toole has what it takes to defeat the Liberals, to defeat Justin Trudeau, or whoever follows Justin Trudeau, and win an election and become Prime Minister of Canada? Does he Do you see him ever becoming prime minister? Do you ever see that happening? Let me know. I really want to get into this with you this morning. Do you think that will ever happen? Prime Minister Erin O'Toole. Is that in the cards? Is that in the making? Is that a possibility, or is it not in the cards, not in the making, and never going to happen? 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. Vince in Nepean. Good morning, Vince. You're on City News.
Good morning, Rob.
You think this will ever happen? Prime Minister Erin O'Toole.
I'll answer that question this way.
Okay.
An empty cab pulled up to the steps of Parliament Hill, and Erin O'Toole got out.
I'm sorry, an empty what?
Taxi cab.
Yeah, I can't hear what you're saying, Vince. I'm having a hard time hearing you. It might be
my mask.
Oh, it's your mask. Okay.
An empty cab pulled up to the steps of Parliament Hill.
Okay.
And Erin O'Toole got out.
Okay, so you don't think it'll ever happen, right?
No.
Why is that, Vince? Can I ask you, Vince? Why is that?
Because he stands for everything, and then the next week he stands for nothing.
He's a flip-flopper.
A flipper didn't do as good a job as he does.
Okay, all right. Okay, yeah, he's not consistent in his positions. Yeah, no principles. Okay.
Yeah, he's not
all
principled.
Right.
He wants to get elected, but he's not principled.
Not principled enough. Okay.
He doesn't stand for anything that you can pin and point him on.
Doesn't stand for anything. Okay, you're very hard on him, Vince. You're very hard on him. Okay, but no, look, I appreciate the sentiment, and you got us off to a good start, even though it was hard to hear you through the mask. Is it in the cards? Is it? Can you see it happening? Prime Minister Erin O'Toole. 750-1310. Some people just say, he doesn't look like a prime minister to me. He doesn't look prime ministerial to me. But we can start with that question. Will it ever happen, Prime Minister Erin O'Toole? And then, we'll kind of see where the conversation goes. Because as usual, I have all kinds of other questions. The questions like, is it an O'Toole problem or is it a Conservative problem? Look around. Not the best of times for Conservatives these days. Lots of places. Not just at the federal level. Of course, the obvious one is, okay, if not Erin O'Toole, then who? Questions like, why not O'Toole? Is it his look, personality, policies? Just what is it? What is it? That it seems as though Erin O'Toole, right now, is unelectable. Unelectable. Prime Minister O'Toole. Will it ever happen? Rob, Ottawa. Morning, Rob. You're on City News.
Hey, good morning.
Hey, Rob. Prime Minister O'Toole. Will it ever happen?
I doubt it. The reason I doubt it is I don't think any Conservative will ever get voted in again. And, to me, this guy is a quality guy. I don't know what everybody's picking on him for. I don't think a Conservative will ever get ahead because everybody just picks on him too much. Conservatives and the Liberals, and since the Liberals are the only one anybody's listening to, and I mean the media when I say that, I don't know how a Conservative could ever break through no matter how good they are.
Because they're, treated unfairly by the news media? Is that what you're talking about?
Exactly right. Yes, okay. And they're treated unfairly by everybody else, too. I mean, does Justin Trudeau look like a prime minister? I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I mean, he doesn't look like a prime minister any more than Erin O'Toole would. And I mean, if you were to try to create a prime minister in terms of the look and the way he communicates and stuff like that, right. I think it might spit out Erin O'Toole.
Oh, really? Okay.
He's a good communicator, and he looks just fine. I don't see anything wrong with this guy.
Okay. But so you think it's because he's not being given a fair shot, that there are forces that are just kind of stacked against him?
That's exactly
like the media, for example. He doesn't get a fair shake in the media.
Well, yeah. Well, there's not really a conservative media out there. I mean, except, save for this radio station, which I guess you could say is kind of conservative. Maybe the
I don't think the radio station's either conservative or liberal. We're just kind of a news radio station. I have my own opinions, but whatever the case might be.
people speak a little bit more honestly on here than they would than they do in the media.
Well, I'm just here to give you my opinion, and I'm just, I'm as curious as you are about what is it with Aaron O'Toole that he has just kind of failed to launch since pretty much day one of him becoming the leader of the Conservative Party.
Well, I'd like for somebody to tell me what he's done wrong.
Well, I think there are lots of things that he's done wrong.
Okay.
First of all, he ran in the leadership as a true blue conservative. I'm the true blue guy. Okay. And then when he became the leader, he abandoned a lot of those true blue principles, those so-called true blue principles, and instead ran as an Eastern Canadian red Tory, almost indistinguishable from the Liberals. Aaron O'Toole said repeatedly when he was running for the leadership of the Conservative Party, I will never have a carbon tax. I will never bring in a carbon tax. And within months of becoming the Conservative leader, says, actually, you know what? I'm going to have a carbon tax.
This is exactly what I'm talking about. This idea that everything they say they have to do, this never.
No, listen. On a carbon tax, Rob. On a carbon tax for conservatives, for federal conservatives. Well, that's motherhood and apple pie. Okay,
you know what?
That conservatives are opposed to a carbon tax.
To me,
yeah.
Say anything.
Say anything. But if you're going to say
it doesn't matter what he says.
It doesn't matter. It should matter what he says, Rob. It should matter what he says.
Not
it
in
should
a
matter
campaign.
What he says.
It doesn't matter what he says in a campaign. Nobody says anything in a campaign that actually comes true. They're saying what the public wants to hear.
All right. Okay. Let's move along, Albert, because I have more to say on with some of the problems that are kind of clinging to Aaron O'Toole, like static cling. Albert.
Good morning, Rob.
You've been around a long time, Albert. You've been reading the news and following politics a long time. Do you see it happening ever for Aaron O'Toole that he becomes Prime Minister of Canada? Albert?
Good morning, Rob.
Yeah. Do you think he'll ever become Prime Minister, Albert?
No, and I say this with a heavy heart because he's a smart man, and he's had his fumbles, and I follow social media very closely. I follow Andrew Scheer, Pierre, and Andrew, and Andrew. I'm sorry, and
Aaron.
Aaron. And Aaron is having a lot of trouble connecting with the grassroots, and it was there during the elections. And Pierre has just come rifling through. He knows what to say, when to say it. He doesn't fumble. And nothing against Aaron. I think he's an honorable man, and that's one of the personas that we need right now in Parliament today. Somebody that can speak and be honest about what he's going to say. But I think Pierre, even though a couple of years ago he said that he didn't want the position because he had a young family, I think he realizes now, even though the other day he didn't mention it to you on your show
yesterday.
But
yeah.
I think he realizes now he's got to make a run for it, because time is of the factor right now. We can't keep on having Trudeau and all the problems that we have in Canada go on too long. And I think Pierre's the person that can change all this and put the Conservatives ahead.
You think he'd be a better leader? Okay, can you see it? Can you see that happening? Can you see that happening? Prime Minister Pierre Poilievre. Can you see that happen?
I think he's a pit bull.
Yeah.
And people have that against him right now. But you know what? That's what we need right now. We need to cut through all the BS that's out there right now.
Okay, be careful, Howard. Be careful. Okay, we'll be right back. Our question: Prime Minister Aaron O'Toole. Do you ever see that happening? 750-1310. Rob Snow Show Talk Back Hour. This is City News.
An old-fashioned traditional grocery store. You're going to find a butcher, okay? You want a steak cut a certain way, you're going to get it. There's flour piled in the warehouse. There's mixers on the floor. There's flour on the floor. The bakery's rented out to Frank Nicolo. It's him and his son come in at night. They mix the dough, they roll the dough, and they bake the dough. It's not the traditional frozen and thaw and put it in the bin, okay? It's made from scratch 7 days a week. It's probably the only bakery left in Ottawa that does that. Then customer service, we're big on that. The cashiers, the deli, you're not, if you ask for something, they're not going to point, it's an aisle number 7. They're going to bring you there, okay? If you have too much groceries out, we'll take it out to your car. You know what I mean? There's nothing we don't do for our customers. And we evolved around our customers. They would come in and say, can you try getting me this? Can you get me this? So that's how we built the lineup we have now, okay? So we have a lot of unique items that someone that came over to, live in Canada hasn't seen this particular product, but we sourced it and we have it for them that, like something they used to have as a kid. We have a lot of those unique items, a lot, from like all over the world. And we source it through, distributors in Montreal and Toronto that bring in the product in bulk, and we piggyback off of them. Probably the largest European deli in Ottawa. We sell lots because people buy lots. Nothing really complicated about that. We turn over a lot of product. We package it properly. We buy, and we're always consistent. You're always going to buy, Cuddy turkey breast, Saint Daniel mortadella. You're always going to get the same brands. We don't flip back and forth to save 20 cents. It's always the same brands the last 29 years. Best sandwiches in town. It's simple. It starts off with fresh bread every day baked in the store. Anything that's left over goes to breadcrumbs. So you're getting a fresh bun every day that was baked probably 4 hours before you get here, okay? Not only baked, made, like, mix the flour, roll the dough, proof the bread, and bake the bread, okay? Then all the ingredients come right off the shelves. Your lettuce, your tomatoes, all your condiments, and they're cut up fresh in the deli. Not like the big, corporate restaurant chains that your lettuce comes in shredded in a bag, you open it up and you throw it in the bin. Takes, 2 or 3 days to get here from California. How long is it in the bag? The big difference is like making a sandwich at home and you don't have to do the work. It's really what the trick is, and using the freshest ingredients possible.
The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
So Enpro says gas, by the way, is going to hit $1.50 in Toronto tomorrow, which would be a record for the city of Toronto. I noticed it went up a penny or so overnight. 147 at most places. 147.9, really, like 148, right? 148. That's what you see, Dave? About 148?
I didn't see anything less than 47 on the way in.
Anything less than 47. So I think I saw Dan McTagg say record prices for Toronto and many other cities, he said, as of tomorrow. Ouch, 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 ouch. Cheapest gas right now is where?
600 Eagleson Road, Ultramar, 135.9, according to Gas Buddy. That's less than Costco. It says Costco's 136.9.
Wow, holy cow. Okay. 600 Eagleson Road.
Yeah.
Okay. I think
that's in Bridlewood.
Yeah, I know where that is. Yeah. Okay. All right. Interesting. All right. Record gas prices maybe as of tomorrow in the city of Ottawa. The current price record is 148.9. Could break it tomorrow. Prime Minister Aaron O'Toole, will that ever happen? Will that ever happen? That's our question for the Talkback Hour. What do you see in your crystal ball? Ches, Canada, Ches. Let's put the caller on the air, Dave. Ches, go ahead.
All right.
Good, Ches. There we go. Okay.
So here's the thing. I just want to just say one thing before I answer that question.
Yeah.
Mayor Watson's response to the protesters coming to Ottawa.
Yeah.
That was the response of a leader,
Okay.
He just basically said to them, play by the rules, peaceful protests, that type of thing.
Yeah.
The leaders of the three federal parties already they started throwing labels out there about racism and misogyny and that type of thing.
Okay.
Quite frankly, it's really insulting.
All right.
And,
All right.
yeah.
It's not even my topic today, right? I want to know, do you think Aaron O'Toole has what it takes to become Prime Minister? Do you think he's ever going to become Prime Minister? Do you ever see that actually coming to pass?
It could, but the answer is not simple, and there's 3 issues that I have with it.
Okay.
First, there is an issue with him because he keeps flip-flopping, okay?
Right.
And, I'll pull back to the Bill 21. If anything, during the leaders' debate, he should condemn that. Same with Jagmeet Singh. So what does that say to the rest of Canada? What does that say to the rest of, all the cultures in Canada, okay? So I think there was a big mistake there. The other thing, too, is he's up against a liberal media, okay? He can't win. It's kind of like the liberal media in the United States against Donald Trump and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But
don't expect me to come to run to the defense of Donald Trump. So.
No, but you know what I mean. Like it's just.
The media. Yeah, it's all the media's fault, Ches. It's always the media's fault.
Yeah, but here's the other thing.
Gosh,
I look at the voter, okay?
Right.
The confidence of the voter, okay? Yeah. Let's face it. Aaron O'Toole is a smart guy.
Yes.
He's intelligent. He's a lawyer.
Okay.
He's got more qualifications.
And why is he unelectable then? Why is he proven to be unelectable then?
Well, I think he is, but the problem is when you have a number of voters in Canada that had every possible reason to toss Trudeau to the curb with his corruption, with his misogyny, with everything that he's done.
Right.
He should have been gone. Let's give the other guy a chance. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because, the election results were pretty close, right?
It was close, and the polls are still close,
Yeah.
But given everything that you've said and how terrible Mr. Trudeau is, Ches, okay, why isn't he up by 10 points? Why isn't he up by 10 points?
And I think, the people, the conservatives that were loyal to him and then pulled away because he wasn't conservative enough, okay, you know what? You got to give the guy a chance, right? I mean, he did flip flop on the carbon tax, and he shouldn't have. I agree with that.
You can't spend. Ches, thanks. You can't spend months and months and months saying, "I will never have a carbon tax." My opponent, you can't vote for him; he'll have a carbon tax, and then a few months later, you're Mr. Carbon Tax. Gary, Ottawa South. Gary,
how you doing today?
I'm good, Gary. Prime Minister Aaron O'Toole. Will it ever happen?
No.
Why?
And
Why
the reason for that is, in about a year's time or so, Mr. Trudeau is going to want to, quote unquote, spend more time with his family. In other words, he's going to take his ball home because he can't win the game.
Okay.
And then Chrystia Freeland will take over as Prime Minister, and then she will run as Prime Minister, and she will be giving everything away in order to win. And the only person that could go up against her and not make it too personal would be Rona Ambrose. I mean,
I don't think any of the old big name Harper ministers. I don't think any of them are coming back, and you have to kind of move beyond that.
I'm sorry, then I don't mean to be old fashioned or whatever case may be, but I don't think a man's going to beat her because you're old fashioned. You're in favor of this. You want to carry guns and stuff like that. That's just not the case.
Okay.
But
all right,
you know what I mean. I'm sorry.
But it's never happening. It's not in the cards for Aaron O'Toole. You're saying?
No, I don't think so.
Or any other man. Or any other man. You say? Okay. All right. Interesting.
I don't know.
Okay.
Pierre's good, but he likes to fight, but he's got a reputation for that. So I think we need more of a diplomat than anything else.
Well, I guess with Pierre, my question would be, does he get you one more vote? Does he get you, say, a soft liberal vote? Is he going to change a soft liberal supporter's mind to come over to the conservative side and vote conservative? Or does he because he's so harsh or hard-edged, does he actually repel those soft votes? That he'll hold you the base, the conservative base, no doubt. But does he get you to 37 or 38% support? I think that's the big unknown with Mr. Poilievre. Yeah, with Pierre. Thank you, Gary.
It is
Thank
a big unknown, and Yeah, unfortunately, and of course we did. Why didn't Aaron O'Toole did it? I mean, he almost did it. He almost got a minority conservative leadership. That would have been interesting, but wouldn't have lasted very long. But you know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I looked up the most recent polls today. I mean, it's basically when you average all the polls, the Liberals and the Conservatives are each at about 30, and the New Democrats are 10 points behind, and they're at 20. You break down some of the latest polling numbers. Main Street, 29, 29, 17. Leger has the Liberals in the lead, 34, 31, 18. Nanos has the Conservatives up by 1 point, 29, 28, 24. Ecos has it 30, 30, 20. Abacus has the Liberals up by 2, 32, 30, 19. Like, nobody's really lighting anyone's hair on fire right now, right? There's no Trudeau mania, and there hasn't been any kind of Trudeau mania for a long time, but there's really no enthusiasm for any of the alternatives either. And there's an old line in politics. Don't compare me to the almighty, compare me to the alternative. And the last time that comparison was made, it worked out for Mr. Trudeau. He's not the almighty, but enough Canadians thought he was better than the alternative. But do you ever see this happening? Prime Minister Aaron O'Toole. Armand in Ottawa. Good morning, Armand. You're on City News.
Good morning.
Yep. You see it happening?
My opinion, I don't believe Aaron O'Toole will ever make it.
No?
Because the last election, during his campaign, he had so many ins of getting to the people, but he wasn't there. So a lot of people say, well, he's not saying anything. It's too late. You know what I mean? He doesn't step up to the plate when he's supposed to. Like, he did have a lot of door openings there where he could have stepped in, and he never did. And now Trudeau has got him, basically where he wants him. And like, for case in point, look at today. Well, tomorrow, Mr. Trudeau all of a sudden got COVID again. He's going for 5 days isolation. How convenient. My personal point, he's running away from the truckers. Not that I'm supporting truckers.
Okay. All right. Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, O'Toole should be, I don't know. He's not going to be there. Pierre will do it, though. I believe Pierre will do it.
You think Pierre could become prime minister?
Oh, I think Pierre will do it. So? Yeah, he's the kind of person we kind of need to shake things up. Let's put it that way.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you, Armand. Thank you. Yep. Yeah. I mean, he's an Eastern Ontario MP, been around a long time. Naturally, that he would get quite a few props here. 10:28 halftime. Rob Snow show on this question: Prime Minister O'Toole, will it ever come to pass? 750-1310, right after the news with Andrew Boyle here on City News.
1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, January 27th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, minus 12. In Smiths Falls, minus 10. Here's what's making news this hour. Ottawa's mayor is calling for a peaceful demonstration when truckers make their way to the capital over the next 3 days. An expected large crowd of people opposed to vaccine mandates in their industry are on their way. Jim Watson says he's not happy, though, telling people to stay away from the downtown this weekend. There has been a drop in the number of people in hospital today in Ontario with COVID-19. The province says 341 fewer people are in hospitals with that virus compared to yesterday. ICUs have seen a slight drop, down 9 from yesterday to 599 altogether. Now, 70 more deaths have been recorded in Ontario from the virus. Over 5,800 new cases reported today province-wide, 417 in Ottawa, 113 in Eastern Ontario. 41 new cases in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, 34 more in Renfrew County. Prime Minister is in self-isolation for the second time during this pandemic. Justin Trudeau has been exposed to COVID again, says he will self-isolate at home for the next 5 days. And longtime Pittsburgh Steeler quarterback Ben Roethlisberger announcing he is retiring from the game, making that announcement on Twitter. City News Time, 10:31. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
It's time to talk back
on the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Do you think this will ever happen? Prime Minister Aaron O'Toole. Do you think that will ever happen? That's a pretty easy question this morning. Chris in Ottawa. Chris. Good morning, Chris.
Morning.
What do you think, Chris? Will it ever happen? Prime Minister Aaron O'Toole?
No.
No? Why not?
He's a liberal.
He's a liberal. Okay. Well, liberals are have been pretty good, pretty successful at getting elected. So.
Oh, I mean, they have. Have they been legitimate elections? That's questionable.
Well, I don't know.
One big thing about Aaron O'Toole, why I don't think he will be elected as prime minister as a conservative, just for instance, he removed Derek Sloan from his caucus for having an opinion that contradicts his.
Yeah.
That is not a conservative thing to do.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Fine. Yeah, I'm not a big Derek Sloan fan, but nevertheless.
You don't have to be a fan of the person,
right?
But to remove that person from caucus for having an opinion is a different thing.
Okay, all right.
Right? If we remove discussion, if we remove anyone from having a topic of discussion, this is why we're in this scenario right now.
Okay.
Because we have been told our entire lives, do not speak about politics, do not speak about religion, when we should have been told, learn how to speak about politics, learn how to speak about religion.
Okay.
That way we can unite.
Oh, okay.
If we divide everyone all the time, then you lose conversations, you lose friends over people that don't know how to agree to disagree, and you lose an opportunity of growth and learning.
Okay. Yeah. I'm wondering if Aaron O'Toole has what it takes to become prime minister, or if maybe it's just not ever going to happen for him. I think my reasons differ from yours. I don't think getting rid of Derek Sloan really hurt him all that much. I think there are bigger factors at play. If the job of the leader of the opposition is to try to eventually become prime minister, why has he failed so far? You might say, well, it was his first crack at it. He's only had one crack at it, and it didn't go his way first time around, but surely to goodness, he's a new leader. He deserves another shot, and maybe the whole O'Toole thing is a two-election project. I don't know what you think of that, if you want to weigh in on that, whether he deserves a second chance. I wanted to raise this as a question today because today is the day that the Conservative Party receives the report from one of its own former MPs, the report on why it lost the election. Why did we lose the election? The Cumming report, James Cumming doing the report, former Alberta Conservative MP. And it might only serve to feed the beast for those who think Aaron O'Toole should be shown the door and that there should be a leadership race. And, people are already mentioning names who they'd like to see in a race. And we can get into that before 11 o'clock, too. I think the biggest knock against Aaron O'Toole is that it's just too hard to figure out where the man stands on any given day. One day he says one thing, the next day he's saying something else. It's not a question of what kind of conservative he is, but is he committed to his own convictions? He ran, he ran a smart leadership race. I mean, there's no question about that. When it came time to make the pitch just to conservatives, only to conservative members, he had the right pitch. Not only to grab first place votes, but then those critical second and third place votes, right? The down ballot votes from the more socially conservative members of the party, like the previous callers, the Derek Sloan supporters, the Leslyn Lewis supporters, who were the anybody but McKay people. Smart move. But then after he won, he became a different person. Some say the real Aaron O'Toole emerged, totally different than the one that ran in the leadership. And he went from being the true blue conservative, the one saying, I'll never have a carbon tax, I'll do something about equalization. And he morphed into what he ran against, the moderate Eastern Canadian Red Tory of Peter MacKay. He basically became Peter MacKay. So right from the get-go, he has a credibility problem. If conservatives can't believe their own leader, well, why would the rest of the country? Justin in Kingston. Justin, good morning.
How are you today?
Oh, I'm okay. I'm okay. Everybody has a lot of opinions, which I find interesting. Where are you on this?
I agree.
Do you think it's going to happen for him?
No, not at all. No? I just agree with everything you just said. It's his credibility. He flip-flops.
Yeah.
Like he can't do it. He's looking for the liberal vote, so he caters to the liberals. He wants a conservative vote, so he caters to the conservatives. Like
he wants the Quebec nationalist vote, so he doesn't say anything about Bill 21, right? Yeah.
And my thoughts are, it's for the Conservative Party you actually need to get back to your grassroots, which he did not. It's going to take a dark horse to bring it back, and it's going to be a while, I think.
You think it's going to be a while? Yeah. Okay. It'll be a while.
And I'm true blue conservative. I'm a Gen Xer, so.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Less spending, less government.
Smaller government, lower taxes. Yeah. I hear you. Yeah.
And I hate to be blunt, but nowadays with all these social issues going on, people need to grow some balls.
Okay. All right. Okay. Our conversation ends there then, Justin. Thank you. But credibility. You watch Law and Order, Dave? You watch Law and Order?
I'm familiar with Law and Order.
Right? Yeah. Jack McCoy. You got a witness on the stand, right? They play like this is on the Law and Order all the time, and the witnesses lied before, right? You go and you're cross-examining the witness. You see Jack McCoy do this on Law and Order all the time. Well, tell me, are you lying now, or were you lying then? Why should we believe anything you say? Objection. Withdrawn, Your Honor. The way it goes, right? It's kind of Aaron O'Toole. He's on the witness stand. And you don't know if he's lying now or he was lying then. So many different positions on so many policy issues. It's enough to make your head spin sometimes. I will repeal the Trudeau-era gun control measures. Oh, actually, I won't. I will never have a carbon tax. Oh, wait, I will. And you get some kind of green savings account so you can buy green things. Like you go buy a twisty light bulb or a tire for your bicycle.
I forgot about the savings account.
Like the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
So dumb.
Dumb as paint. He went to Alberta. He went to Newfoundland. He didn't even use the word equalization. He came up with this new term, fiscal sustainability. And you can just imagine, like, you go to like a rally, like an Aaron O'Toole rally, and they must be thinking to themselves as they listen to the man speak, fiscal sustainability. What does he? Oh, does he mean equalization? Why don't you just say equalization? And on Bill 21, he's under a lot of pressure from inside his own party to take a stronger stand on Bill 21, but don't hold your breath, because when it comes to Bill 21, he's just like the rest of them. He rolls over and does whatever Legault wants, right? But you wonder, how does that go over in other parts of the country? How does placating Legault and just call it, well, that's federalism. You placate on Bill 21, but what does that do? What do you think people think of you in places like Brampton and Peel and Surrey and Richmond and whatever the case might, Markham, whatever. Anyway. What do you think, Chad? Chad, good morning, Chad. You're on City News.
Hey, good morning, Rob.
Do you think Aaron O'Toole will ever be prime minister?
No, I don't. I think he had his shot, and I'm one of those soft liberals, blue liberals, if you will. There's
blue liberal, yeah, sure, yeah.
There's a lot of us, and I think I've been ready for a change for a while, and he started out okay, and it got really clumsy, and that wasn't the liberal media. That was just what it is, like with the gun stuff, Jason Kenney. MPs getting vaccinated. It was just those blank stares that it seemed like he was too manufactured, or they were trying to manufacture him, and it was robotic. So I feel like the party needs somebody that shoots from the hip and has a bit of charisma. I will say, not the charisma of Pierre Poilievre. If Poilievre ran, I believe it'd be a Liberal majority. I think the NDP would go to the Liberals. Soft Liberals and Liberals are terrified of that guy.
Yeah, that he would really motivate the left to the point where it might coalesce around one party.
Absolutely.
The anything but Poilievre movement would come to life.
Exactly,
right?
And it's just his history. Yeah. He doesn't speak for everybody, and I think he's just burned so many of the left. They're nauseated by that guy. As an East Coaster, I'm trying to think of who would be. Someone like Danny Williams, who's not perfect, but shoots from the hip. He's smart. But we got to get rid of the old guard. Peter MacKay, Rona Ambrose. She's got no interest. People keep talking about her. They're both great. They're talented, but someone fresh that can still have those conservative values, but speak for everybody and kind of be a little closer to the left. I mean, I'm ready. I'm like a soft liberal. I was ready to accept, conservative stuff I didn't like, but whatever. We do need a change. But if the party keeps putting, poor candidates in like this, things aren't going to change, unfortunately.
All right, Chad. Thank you. Great points. Yeah, very interesting. Okay, let's take this one here. Steve in Ottawa. Steve.
Hey, Rob.
Hey,
long time no talk.
Yeah, Steve. Do you think Aaron O'Toole will ever be prime minister?
Maybe, but not for the Conservative Party. Maybe if he crossed the floor and Justin and Katie Sim or something like that.
Okay, all right.
Anyways, Rob, like I said, he's wishy-washy. He's, he's not even himself. It seems like he's getting controlled by, like, handlers or something. They're like, now do this, now do that. And it's like, just be yourself, man. Like, have a stance on something. You know what I mean? Like, it's like these politicians nowadays are, like, trying to please everybody all the time. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of people in Quebec that don't agree with, the racist bill there or whatever. I'm sure they'd be like, oh, great, someone's really standing up for that or standing up against it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I got another question for you, Rob. Do you like food at the grocery store?
Well, holy cow! We went grocery shopping. We bought it. The bill was $308 for the two of us, and we bought no meat. No, which is fine. My wife is vegetarian, so it's great for her. It's not so great for me. But I was just, how do we spend $308 and buy no meat? Yeah.
I went to the grocery store the other night. There was no chicken.
Right.
There was very little beef.
Yeah.
Now, if people who want stuff at the grocery store, cancel the mandate. Like, I don't understand what's the point. Truckers drive alone.
You know, my wife is kind of nosy, so she struck up a conversation with the cashier who said we normally we are getting the same amount of trucks in, but when the trucks come in, they're carrying fewer supplies. Like if we were getting, the cashier said we get 500 different products on a truck. The last shipment that came in had 300.
Right.
So there are shortages of certain things, but it's not so much the shortage. It's prices. It's prices that are astonishing to me, Steve. But that's we can get into that tomorrow. We can get into that tomorrow, Steve. Friday free for all tomorrow. I'm kind of on this O'Toole kick today. Let's take a quick break and then be back with Michelle and David and wow, look at this. Canada, Iroquois, Kingston. Callers from all over the place. I love it. Rob Snow Show, City News.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
Do you ever see Erin O'Toole becoming Prime Minister? That's our question for this morning. Not a lot of people are saying, yeah, I can see that guy as Prime Minister. I wouldn't measure the drapes for Rideau Cottage if I was him. Michelle in Canada. Michelle.
What do you think Jack McCoy would say to Justin Trudeau if he had him on the
Oh, what Jack McCoy could do to Justin Trudeau, yeah.
So why is it that Trudeau can lie and nobody ever gets him, corners him on it? The double standard is just
well,
unreal.
I mean, he's been cornered, and but if you know all this, Michelle, and if all of these things are happening, and if Justin Trudeau is doing as terrible a job as everybody thinks he's doing, again, I come back to this.
I know.
Why is Aaron O'Toole have the Conservative Party at 29% in the polls?
I wish I knew the answer to that. If I did, I'd can it and sell it and make $1 million.
Okay.
Because I don't know. I just don't understand why people seem to think the Conservatives are a one and done only. Like you get one shot, and if you're not successful, you get tossed to the curb.
They love a winner. They only love a winner and won't tolerate a loser.
But Trudeau didn't win. The Liberals didn't win the first election that Trudeau ran as leader of the Liberal Party.
He did. He did.
Right?
No, he did. He did. Yeah.
Did he?
Yeah. He took them from from being third party into right into a majority government.
Okay, well, maybe I'll have to brush up on my history up there. I thought that he was served in the opposition, or maybe that was when he was first elected as an MP or something like that, not as a leader of the party.
That's right.
Anyway.
He was just the member for Papineau.
Because you look at the NDP. The NDP is perpetually in third place.
Yes.
And they've had leaders for multiple elections.
Yeah.
Look at Andrea Horwath.
They keep losing. Yeah, Andrea Horwath's running in her fourth election.
Right. So why? I just can't stand the double standard.
Okay.
I really can't stand the double standard.
Okay, so with that being said, then should he stay? Should he get another chance?
And I think he should learn the lessons.
Yeah.
Okay. He went too far into the centrist area to try to grab those liberal votes and appeal to the broader base. And that just really, really gets the grassroots and the conservative base upset. And that's what happens. You're trying to, tread this fine line between the two for growing the party and getting the votes you need to get into power and be elected. And no, you don't want to be lying, because that's just the liberal playbook, right? You campaign on the left and you govern from the right kind of thing, right? Because you've got to get those votes in order to be able to be elected so you can put your plan into effect.
Okay. All right, Michelle, you make some great points.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I liked his tough stance on China, for example. He had a very principled stance on Canada, China, and but there were some questions about whether that tough stance cost the Conservatives some ridings, and now that's led to more speculation if that is behind this decision to abandon the Canada-China committee that was looking into all of these issues. And I put that to Mr. O'Toole when I interviewed him recently, and his top foreign policy issue, he said, right now isn't China, that it's Afghanistan and getting the people we left behind in Afghanistan into this country. So, I leave that with you, whether you think that's the right decision or whether you think that that's even true. And his position on the convoy that's coming to Ottawa, I mean, it's very much in contrast with other Conservative MPs who say, they support the convoy 100% and plan to meet the protesters when they come to Ottawa. Mr. O'Toole would not go that far in his news conference this week. And as Gary Keller from Strategy Corps told me yesterday, that's deliberate, obviously, that, he is worried, O'Toole is worried that the protest goes sideways and it gets really, really ugly, really, really fast. You don't want to be the political leader associated with that. But getting back to the original question, do you ever see this happening? Aaron O'Toole becomes prime minister. You see that? Is that in the cards for him? In Iroquois, David. Morning, David.
Hello. So I am of the opinion that Mr. O'Toole will never become Prime Minister of Canada.
Okay.
He kind of lost me when he stood beside the former Prime Minister Brian Mulroney when he said that that our parents, the Conservative Party that our parents voted for, is not the same as what we're going to be voting for. And I said that's That's not in my card, sorry.
Okay.
And then he came out with this carbon tax scheme. Like, you have to be a Philadelphia lawyer to even figure it out. Like, it just, anyways.
I know. I think they're still trying to figure it out.
That lady Lewis.
Leslyn Lewis, yeah.
Yeah, and I like Chung. I think that's his name.
Chong, Michael Chong, yeah.
Yeah, and I listen to those two people talk, and they sound like they're intelligent. They got conservative values.
Yeah.
I haven't been good when I'm picking conservative leaders. I thought maybe Mad Max would have been a good replacement.
A lot of people did, but then then he kind of went off the deep end.
Yeah, and then I thought, okay, well, who do we got next? Andrew Scheer. Well, that didn't work out very good either.
No.
And then I thought, okay, well, that's Mr. O'Toole. He's been hanging around and could come in third place all the time. Let's see what he's got. And again, I was wrong. So I think Mr. O'Toole is a liberal, and he wears a blue suit and a blue tie.
Oh, okay. All right, David. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much, David.
Thank you very much. Yep.
Yeah. He's a liberal with a blue suit and tie. David Bayshore. Dave.
So I got a question for you. You know what? Honestly, I think Justin Trudeau. I think Justin Trudeau's doing the best he can. I think he's doing the best he can to get the vaccines out, to get everybody vaccinated.
Dave,
and I know we don't have.
Dave, you're not anywhere close to the topic there, Dave. Okay. Is it Jean in Ottawa? Jean?
Yes.
Yeah, Jean. Do you think Aaron O'Toole will ever be Prime Minister?
I'm sorry to say I don't think he will.
Okay. And why do you say that?
He's vacillated back and forth on all of these different issues.
Okay.
I don't know if it's because of his staff, but in the end, the buck stops there.
Right.
He's just a nice guy, and you need more of somebody along the lines of Pierre Poilievre, who's a bit of a bulldog.
Okay. All right.
I think one of the problems is that people don't really look at the issues. If the Conservatives made a list of all of the items that the Liberals have screwed up and done illegally, maybe the Conservatives would have a better chance.
Okay.
Have a good day.
You too. Thank you. Thank you for all of your calls. That was a very busy hour. We'll do it again tomorrow. Friday Free for All Talkback Hour tomorrow. That's always an adventure. Ooh, boy. If you haven't participated in that, maybe take your chances tomorrow. 750-1310, always after the 10 o'clock news. Here on The Rob Snow Show on City News.
local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, January 27th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, minus 11. It's minus 10 in Smith Falls. Feeling colder in the wind, though, and here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Ottawa's mayor is hoping the trucker convoy demonstration on Parliament Hill this weekend remains peaceful and orderly. Police telling residents who don't have to be downtown this weekend, if you can, avoid the area, you really should. City News Time, 11:01, and now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
We'll get into a south wind and climb to our high, minus 7. Some flurries mainly for the afternoon and evening, and 2 centimeters could accumulate by tonight. Minus 17 for the low for tomorrow, Saturday, and Sunday. Plenty of sunshine, but highs still quite cold. Minus 14 Friday, minus 13 Saturday, and about minus 11 on Sunday. The average high is minus 6. For today, the high, minus 7.
And right now, the wind making it feel colder, but it's minus 11 in Ottawa, minus 10 in Smith Falls. Now we'll get more on the convoy headed our way. Here's City News reporter Jason White.
To try to reduce congestion into and out of the core while the truckers are here, the message is for residents who don't live downtown to avoid it if they can.
I hate to say that because it's counterintuitive, because we've been encouraging people to come and shop local.
Mayor Jim Watson tells the Rob Snow Show he hopes the organizers have thought of all the logistics.
Normally when these protests take place, the organizers are responsible for working with the city to get porta potties, for instance. I don't know if that's happened.
He says he hopes anyone demonstrating downtown this weekend remains peaceful and follows the rules. Jason White, City News.
City News Time, 11:02. The Prime Minister is now in self-isolation after he says he was exposed to COVID-19. City News Parliament Hill reporter Cormac McSweeney with that story.
In a tweet, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced he will be following the advice of Ottawa Public Health and isolating for the next 5 days after learning last night that he was exposed to COVID-19. He's taken a rapid test and the result is negative. The Prime Minister's office has not said who the infected individual was that led to this exposure, but they do confirm to me the exposure happened after he held a news conference with his Deputy Prime Minister, the Defence Minister, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs. During his isolation, the Prime Minister will be working from home, which includes the return to Parliament on Monday. Several of Trudeau's cabinet ministers in recent weeks have had to isolate after positive tests or because they were potentially exposed. Trudeau is set to call foreign leaders today and address the Liberal caucus at a virtual retreat. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
City News Time, 11:03. Well, now an update to a story we told you about last week. A man searching for paramedics who saved his life in 1994 has now been contacted by one of them. Dave Murphy was stabbed 13 times, just missing his heart and also puncturing his lung during a confrontation at Bayshore Mall. 8 years ago, he began the search for the paramedics who came to his aid. All he remembers, it was one man and one woman. Well, a relative of one of them heard the story on City News and told her. She got in touch with Dave. More on this story coming up this afternoon. Dave will be on the Sam Laprade Show. A gathering is being held a week from Saturday for the families affected by the Eastway tank explosion. This is going to be held at Merivale Lane starting at 1 in the afternoon on February 5th. This is set up to honor the 6 who were killed in the explosion and fire. People attending will have a chance to sign books of memory and condolences. This is open to anyone wishing to express their support in person. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The world is changing.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
There is new public opinion research about the Freedom Convoy, about the truckers' protest that is on its way to our city. It's public opinion research done for City News by Maru Public Opinion, and John Wright is Executive Vice President there, and he joins me this morning on the Rob Snow Show on City News. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
It's great to hear from you, John. Welcome back. What did you ask?
Well,
based on what the ballot question seemed to be last Friday, we took the weekend and asked Canadians whether or not they would be open to having unvaccinated truckers cross over the border to deliver goods and materials and food on the Canadian side, or whether they were firmly entrenched in having only vaccinated drivers arrive and do that job, or with a potential middle ground to see whether or not the production of a 72-hour negative test would be appropriate. And what we found was the public basically splitting into a third in each category. So 28% effectively saying, come across the border unfettered. And the remaining two-thirds cut in half, one saying, stop, don't go any further, but the other saying that having some kind of proof would be appropriately accepted.
Okay. So there is a sentiment that there is room for compromise then, John, would it be fair to say?
It's fair to say that since about last fall, effectively when the election was underway and the passport started to be talked about, in fact, it became Quebec had used the idea about the second or third week into the campaign, which then gave rise to the People's Party of Canada in the polls. Since that time, when those firm mandates have been put in place with restrictions, the public is effectively divided into three parts. There's upwards of 30% that I've found through the enormous amount of polling that we've done on this issue, which tend to be on the civil libertarian side, that tend to want to make sure that that people can go unfettered about their business, and that applies to people who believe that vaccines should not be mandated. There's another third at the other end who are full stop against that. They look at the issues that are pertaining to their hospitals and their own health and welfare, and they say that that's where they want to go. And then there's a group of people in the middle who will take it on a case-by-case basis. Now, I guess the issue with the truckers is it's a little bit like Spider-Man. I mean, you got lots of power, lots of fueled rage, lots of channeling of all this, frustration through your convoy. The question is, what do you try to achieve at the end of it? If it's not about just coming across the border, it's a bunch of other things. The question will be, what does that one-third take away from, the end of your protest? And I think that's what I'll be looking for, in the next few days.
Okay. John Wright is with us, Executive Vice President, Maru Public Opinion. So this is a clip of the Prime Minister, John, from yesterday in his news conference yesterday afternoon following the virtual caucus retreat. When he was asked about this convoy coming to the nation's capital.
The small fringe minority of people who are on their way to Ottawa or who are holding unacceptable views that they're expressing.
I can't hear it.
Do not represent.
Okay, John can't hear it, so let's just start.
Canadians who have been there for each other, who know that following the science and stepping up to protect each other is the best way to continue to ensure our freedoms, our rights, our values as a country.
So, John, this is a thing that's like raging in social media right now. The idea that the overwhelming majority of Canadians support vaccine mandates and that those who don't, I guess, are a fringe or they're a minority. Does the public opinion research back that up, John?
Well, I think there's two things that back up some parts of that, and that is that we have, a very significant majority of the government of the public population that has actually followed through and got two vaccines and are following the mandates and doing those sort of things. But I think for the Prime Minister to characterize this as a fringe group, again, goes back to the rhetoric that he used in the last campaign. Now, I don't think it's terribly helpful. In fact, if you look at the current public opinion on where his electoral chances are this morning, they're at 28%, which is the same as what he's describing as a fringe group. So I think that you kind of have to parse out these two things. Number one, we have a prime minister who tends to weaponize minority groups and turn them, against different aspects of our society. That's just how the politics have been played in this going back the last period of time. On the other hand, I don't think that that's really what's characterizing this debate. The first thing is that this started out as a question of whether or not people should be bringing goods back and forth over a border. If it's now graduated to a debate on whether there should be mandates or not, which are really provincial jurisdiction, then there are people questioning at this stage, having gone through Omicron, about how long and this is going to go on for. I would argue that the mood of the country right now is really quite frustrated, anxious, and angry. But I don't think that the Prime Minister helps that by simply saying, if you're not on board with me, then you're off in the fringe. There's mixed opinion in the country right now.
Okay.
And as I like to say to politicians, how's that working for you so far?
Yeah. Well, speaking of politicians, we have a clip of another one. You should be able to hear this. Aaron O'Toole pressed by reporters earlier in the week also about the convoy. Will you meet with the convoy, et cetera? Let's play that.
So
okay.
That's what we've been advocating for responsibly the last few months, Glenn, is to try and tackle the supply chain crisis, encourage vaccination, not ignore problems and divide the country like Mr. Trudeau does.
You didn't answer my question about
yes, I did, Glenn.
You didn't say whether you
are a critical tool.
You didn't say whether you meet with them.
And we need
you didn't say what,
to make sure we keep store shelves full.
Maybe you can answer in response to my next question, sir. You can say whether you meet with them. That's why
last week.
Okay. So look, O'Toole has been trying to press this opinion that there has to be room for compromise on this, John, and he has been accused in the past of pandering to anti-vax elements when he said reasonable accommodation must be found for people who are unvaccinated. How does that go over with the public? What's your sense of that?
I don't think they know where Mr. O'Toole stands on any of this stuff. I mean, honestly, again, he's a victim of the 28% of voters who would vote for him tomorrow. I mean, both the leader of the current government, Mr. Trudeau, and he are stuck at 28% support. So neither of them have any electoral advantage in this. Number two, Mr. O'Toole has been trying to straddle those elements of his party who clearly are represented by many people who are now moving towards Ottawa in the trucks and are part of his caucus. And this is not about sovereignty association. It literally is about whether or not you are going to stand up and you're going to take a position on this thing, and rather than being, talking out of both sides of your mouth. So I don't think he's satisfied his supporters, and he certainly hasn't satisfied the rest of the public. I don't know what the answer is. It's a crosshair for politicians nowadays, but to your point, to answer directly, he hasn't satisfied Canadians, and again, it's showing up in the very numbers that he's got.
Okay. What do you think about this idea that what started out as a truckers' protest over an issue of public policy, vaccine mandates for a certain select group of employees, truck drivers, has now morphed into a protest about quote-unquote freedom, that it's become a proxy for a whole bunch of different grievances, or all the grievances, after 2 years of pandemic life. Do you think there's something to that, John?
Yeah, of course there is.
Yeah.
I think, as I said, last Friday it was about one thing, and then this week it's turned into something that appears to be more global.
Okay.
And secondly, it's got a whole range of ingredients here. It's not just about people who are angry about being locked down or mandates. It's now turned into something about freedom. It's turned about how government in Ottawa is not listening to people. It's really a convoy of anger and frustration. As I said a moment ago, I can acknowledge that there's 43% of people in this country who are very frustrated and anxious about where they sit right now. So it's capturing that. The question is, what does it do with that at the end of the day? And I'm not sure it's going to accomplish a lot, except there's going to be a lot of trucks in a particular area, and depending upon how they handle themselves, if it's just kind of, we got the protest, we make the speeches, and we leave, then that's going to be the reflection that the public gets. It's kind of like, good on you, you carried water for me, and thank you very much. If, in fact, it resorts to any kind of violence, if there's other things, then other people in the country will not want to be associated with it, and will probably defeat the very reason that it went there, and confirm the worst views that people have in it. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword at the moment. But yeah, it's turned into something more than just a cross-border issue.
Okay. Thank you so much, John Wright. Great to have your perspective and expertise.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Executive Vice President, Maru Public Opinion. That is John Wright. Coming up next, we're going to go back and revisit a big news story from yesterday, and that's the Bank of Canada's interest rate announcement with one of the top economists in the country coming up. It's Sal Guatieri from BMO Economics. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
This affected us big time because when, you know how we are seasoned. We have clothes for the spring, clothes for the winter. At that time, lots of clothes didn't arrive on time from Europe or from here because some factory shut down. So, and this put us in an odd position. We received not all the merchandise, part of the merchandise. And people, and for us, we have to be careful, you know, especially with the virus going on. It did affect the business, of course, like everybody else. We're not immune, and since the government helped, you know, this did a little bit good for us too, but still affected all the sectors, especially clothing. You know, you can see big corporation affected bad because nobody was thought it's gonna be like this. You know, earthquake might happen, we joke about it before, things might happen, but this was like a third war, but with a virus. So how to survive, that's the question, and we're doing our best to work with the mall, especially rent in a mall is very high. The government, they have certain, let's say, condition, like how many people will be in the mall or in the stores, etc. Yeah, it's a big factor, but of course, if my store has a back doors, or just will be better, it will be much better. At least we can have curbside much easy, because we have to shut down completely, you know. And this left a mark on us, on everybody too. People always ask me, go online. Certain things you can't go online. Let's say T-shirt, certain product people don't know how to fit, but when it comes to clothing, like it's different completely. Let's say I have a customer comes, you can give him 44, but certain suit he might take 42, certain suit he might take 46. So, and how could, I mean, suit is not gonna fit the same. And I see people come back and they show me what they got online and not the same fabric. Mostly young people, but if you really wanna shop, you have to go to the store because everything will be around you. You wanna be sure the color look good, the fit will look good, especially when you spend, doesn't matter how much money, 300 or 2,000, you know? You have to try, you have to see what's going on. Please don't be shy, contact us. It will be a pleasure for me to take a suit or coat or anything. Like sometimes people have a funeral, they have things, they have a wedding, they don't want to come to the mall. If I get all the information, I will go and meet them at their home or their business offices. I'm gonna start doing that, you know, and this will help the business and help the people. Like they're afraid to come to the mall for time being, or they're too busy at work. They cannot go anywhere at certain times, so I'm glad to do that.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News 101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Let's talk about interest rates. Bank of Canada not raising interest rates yesterday. Interest rate hikes are very much part of the plan, though, for the rest of the year. Sal Guatieri is back, senior economist, BMO Economics. Good morning, Sal.
Good morning,
Yeah,
Rob.
it's nice to hear from you. What did you think of the decision yesterday from the Bank of Canada?
Well, the bank basically is just delaying the inevitable that rates are going up. And most likely, almost certainly in 5 weeks' time, early March, at their next meeting. It was a bit of a surprise that they didn't move, at least for the market yesterday. But again, the strong message clearly worded in both the statement and the governor's press conference that interest rates are going up. In fact, Governor bluntly said the period of emergency low rates is over. Rates will need to increase, and Canadians should expect a rising path for rates. And of course, path means a series of increases, not one step. So, I mean, the bank is pretty committed to returning inflation to target, essentially putting the inflation genie back in the bottle. So it's clearly signaling a move at its next policy announcement date in early March. And the reason is simple: inflation is too high. It's close to 5% when measured by the CPI. There's virtually no slack left in labor markets. There's widespread labor shortages, little slack left in the economy, and the banks worry now that the high rate of inflation could alter households' expectations for inflation. And what that could mean is that workers then start bargaining for even bigger wage increases, and that adds another spine to inflation. So,
but with all of that, then why not now? Why not move now, then, if all of that is going on? That's the puzzling thing, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could argue the Bank of Canada probably should have been raising interest rates even long before now. I mean, last year, at some point, certainly towards the second half of last year, when it was becoming a little clear that inflation was gaining momentum and there was more persistence. And I think the biggest concern is that we're just seeing a broadening of price increases, across a wide range of items. It's not just one or two items, such as gas, that are rising at a fast rate. So, yeah, I think you could argue they probably should have been tightening policy earlier. But again, the blunt message clearly stated is that we should look forward to, in a sense, a series of rate increases this year. In our view, probably at least 100 basis points of rate hikes this year, and that's if inflation falls towards 3% by the end of this year, as the Bank of Canada and ourselves are expecting. We see inflation remaining elevated, then you're going to end up with more rate hikes.
Okay. So how many rate hikes do you expect this year? We're at 0.25 now on the overnight rate, still at 0.25.
Yeah, we're penciling in at least 100 basis points of rate increases, and kind of debating whether we should go even more, just given the persistence in inflation. And don't forget, the economy still has some pretty good momentum. We're probably going to end last year with a growth rate in excess of 4% at an annual rate, and that was despite the Omicron and some of the restrictions taking effect late in the quarter. We will downshift, probably stall in terms of growth in the first quarter, but I mean, as we've seen time and time again during this pandemic, the economy has that resilience and can rebound really quickly once the restrictions are relaxed.
Okay. Do you feel that there's a disconnect between, say, your view of the inflationary environment, what the Bank of Canada is doing right now to combat inflation, and the bank's own view?
Well, there is. I mean, we've been at the forefront for months now of warning about high inflation, and we've consistently been at the high end of the consensus view outlook for inflation, and still are. We are worried about the inflation outlook, even though we, like the bank, believe, as our base case, that as supply chain issues are resolved, we will see some moderation of inflation. But there's a lot of upside risk. There's going to be a lot of persistence in high house prices, unsustainably fast gains in house prices, upward pressure on rent. We think wages are going to move higher this year in response to the tight labor markets. That's going to add some persistence to inflation as well.
Okay.
But yeah, we've been warning both central banks, the Fed and the Bank of Canada. They probably should have been raising rates by this time.
You think they're behind the curve? They're behind the curve.
We sense there's a good risk that both central banks are behind the inflation curve, just given the persistence in inflation and the fact that this is not just a supply issue. This is an excess demand issue fomented by too low interest rates for too long. So, yeah, they're in some ways playing with fire, and we could end up with much higher inflation this year. And if that's the case, we're going to see some catching up by both central banks and much bigger interest rate increases than anyone's anticipating.
Wow, when you say much higher, I mean, it's already at a 30-year high. I mean, what does much higher look like? So, I mean.
Yeah, we don't know. Again, our base case view is that CPI inflation in Canada hovers around 5% over the next couple of months or so, and then we see some of these base effects because of weak prices a year ago. And as the supply chain issues are resolved, we will see inflation moderate. Hopefully oil prices will start to cool down because they seem to be making a beeline towards $100 a barrel. But if those conditions materialize, we should see some moderation of inflation this year, but we're going to end up with inflation comfortable here, well above pre-pandemic levels, even by the end of this year, perhaps well into next year as well, just given some of the persistence in house prices, rents, and wages. Right. So, I think the Bank of Canada will tolerate some higher inflation, but not if inflation stays around 5% through this year. If that's the case, we're going to see bigger interest rate increases.
Okay. What I find interesting is I just away from kind of the monetary policy side of things too, because it's so obvious right now, an energy side of things. A stronger oil price is good for Canada. Painful at the pump. $1.50 tomorrow, according to the experts in Toronto. Sal, I hate to break that to you. For a liter of gas, $1.50 tomorrow in Toronto, which would be a record. But I'm looking at oil futures right now, $87 a barrel. Oil, the price of oil is up 16% so far this year. Just in less than a month, it's up 16%. But the dollar, the Canadian dollar, is flat. It's not increased at all. And usually, that's very strange, Sal, that the dollar is not appreciating with the oil price. What do you think might be going on there? Any idea what might be going on there? The currency hasn't moved all month, even though the oil price is up 16%. It's very, it's kind of a disconnect, really, a traditional disconnect.
Oh, it is, yeah. I mean, normally the Canadian dollar and oil prices are joined at the hip. I mean, if oil prices go up, the Canadian dollar tends to as well, because, as you mentioned, overall higher oil prices are good for Canada's economy because we're such a large net exporter of energy products, even though there's a lot of pain at the pump. But I think a couple things are at play now. After the Fed's decision yesterday and Chair Powell's press conference, I think the market is now worried that the Federal Reserve might need to do a lot of catching up on the rate front as well, and they might even eclipse the Bank of Canada at raising interest rates. And if that's the case, that's going to push the U.S. dollar up even more. And then secondly, the U.S. dollar is just generally strong against all currencies. In fact, the Canadian dollar is not doing too bad against most other currencies. And the reason there is safe haven demand for U.S. dollars, because there's a lot of uncertainty now about inflation, about interest rates, about the Ukraine-Russia situation. And that's resulted in wider credit spreads, weakness in equity markets, and increased so-called safe haven demand for U.S. dollars, weighing on our currency.
Okay. Very interesting times. We'll see what happens. Thank you, Sal Guatieri. Nice to hear from you again.
Likewise, Rob.
Yeah,
Take
bye-bye.
care.
Sal Guatieri, Senior Economist, Bank of Montreal. The world. And what a world it is. The world with Professor Elliot Tepper, Carleton University. Distinguished Senior Fellow, Norman Paterson School of International Affairs. That's right after the news on City News.
101 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, January 27th. Good morning. I'm Danielle Bain. Right now in Ottawa, it's -10, feels like -19, and in Smiths Falls, -9, feels like -16. Here's what's making news this hour. Mayor Jim Watson is calling for a peaceful demonstration when truckers make their way into the capital over the next 3 days. With a large group of people opposed to vaccine mandates in their industry on their way, Watson says he's not happy about telling people to stay away from the downtown area this weekend. Looking at provincial COVID-19 hospitalizations, Ontario is documenting 341 fewer people in hospital compared to yesterday, paired with a slight drop of ICU patients to a total of 599. 70 more deaths have been recorded from the virus, and of the 5,800 new cases today, 417 come from Ottawa, 113 from Eastern Ontario, 41 from Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, and 34 from Renfrew County. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is in self-isolation for the second time. Apparently, he's been exposed to COVID-19 again and says he will self-isolate at home for the next 5 days. And longtime Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback Ben Roethlisberger has announced his retirement from the NFL on Twitter after 18 seasons in the league, 2 Super Bowl victories, and the second most wins by a quarterback after Tom Brady. City News Time, 11:32. I'm Danielle Bain, and for news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's a pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
It's time once more for The World as we welcome back Norman Patterson School of International Affairs, distinguished senior fellow, longtime professor of international affairs from Carleton University, Elliot Tepper. Good morning, Professor.
Good morning, Rob.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great to hear from you. Mr. Trudeau, we have the clip, David? Yeah. So we're going to play a clip here. Mr. Trudeau asked yesterday during a news conference about Ukraine and Canada's mission in Ukraine and what we will offer to Ukraine by way of military assistance. This is Mr. Trudeau.
I'm wondering if you can directly say why you're only providing non-lethal support.
Canada is making a significant announcement today that we will be continuing and expanding an extremely important and successful mission to train Ukrainian forces on the ground. For the past number of years, through Operation Unifier, Canadians have been there to support Ukraine in its defense of its territory and of its sovereignty by training the Ukrainian military. This is the way Canada can best help. And it's an extension of our firm belief that standing up for Ukraine means being there so they can speak and defend themselves, while at the same time continuing to pursue diplomatic solutions at all levels.
Okay, so the Prime Minister of Canada yesterday announcing an extension of Canada's years-old military training mission in Ukraine had been expected and said Canada would provide non-lethal equipment to the country. To me, it seems like a weak response given the gravity of the situation, but that's my opinion. I would like to know yours. How would you describe what was announced yesterday?
Well, among other things, he announced we're doubling our commitment. I think one of the key points here that has not been emphasized sufficiently is only Canada and the UK have boots on the ground. They are NATO members, but this is not a NATO operation. This is not Operation Reassurance. So we do have a situation where a country that is facing an imminent invasion potentially, certainly has been distracted from democratic consolidation, certainly is under threat, is being assisted by Canada in this fashion. The key idea here is to raise the cost to any possible Russian invasion by training people who will actually fight. It reminds me a bit of the situation of China and Taiwan. I mean, we have a kind of an undercurrent through all of our stories today about the future of democracy and the role between rule of law and also democracy versus autocracy, and various of the stories we're covering. But in this case, we have to keep in mind that Ukraine is essentially on its own. The U.S. and all the allies have made very strong statements, and they are going to really move 8,000 troops. All of those are into neighboring states, Rob.
Okay.
If the U.S. really wanted to do something, I suppose, and others in NATO, they could put more actual combat troops. These are not combat troops Canada is having on the ground, and they'll be pulled out in case of a combat. But they are there, along with the UK, and the Ukraine will be on its own otherwise if there's an invasion.
But what about weapons? Can we give them weapons?
The neighboring states are giving weapons. We could make that decision. That decision may still be coming. We read in the paper that there was a whole bunch of weapons that got all prepared to give to the Kurds, and then Iraq objected. So there's a possibility. But the main concern right now for Ukraine is that it not be abandoned. And the possibility exists that if no security guarantee, they are not members of NATO, there's no security guarantee. They undoubtedly would like more lethal weapons. We have some we could provide. The neighboring states are, the neighboring Baltic states in particular are sending lethal weapons that they have. But I think the bottom line on this is that Mr. Putin sees what's going on, and he is not concerned. He's not worried about being attacked by Estonia or, but not, for that matter, the weapons that are being sent to Ukraine. What he sees is that Ukraine is still isolated, and he still is the main threat, and he is the center of global attention on this, which is what he wants.
Okay. So let's talk about the diplomacy, if Mr. Trudeau is still hopeful about diplomacy.
Right.
So Russia called on NATO to pull back its forces and weapons from Eastern Europe and to permanently block Ukraine from becoming a member. Foreign Minister Lavrov says there was no positive response to the main question, the main question being Ukraine joining NATO. What do these developments mean?
We talked a bit about this last week as well. I think, maybe people are really listening to us very closely.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, Lavrov is listening to Snow and Tepper on Thursday morning. Yeah.
What we talked about last week, and what now is on the table, actually, so I'm pleased to see that, is that if there's a way out of our current situation, it's going to have to be by relieving the demands of Russia in terms of their security. They're saying you can't have Ukraine in NATO because that would have another NATO member right up on our border. And we talked about this last week with missiles, only 5 minutes away from Moscow. And we can counter that. We can put missiles in the water and submarines, hypersonic missiles around Venezuela or Cuba, so that the U.S. feels the same kind of threat. The way out of our situation, if there's the will to do so, is to create a different security architecture. The whole business of NATO versus non-NATO, those are clearly non-negotiable. Those were not meant to be taken seriously. But Blinken now has apparently responded by saying, and remember we talked about this in terms of the Marathon Biden press conference, that he was offering basically I will meet with you, Mr. Putin, and I'm willing to discuss security architecture, which means where missiles are. And I've said, let's get a new missile treaty underway, and let's bring in China. And that apparently, not without China, a new missile treaty apparently is of some sort is being offered or a discussion by Blinken. And he's saying there's two paths. You can take that, or you can continue on toward the path of war. Diplomatic negotiations are still going on. The European countries are still engaged in conversation there, so it's still jaw, not war. Macron said he has a plan himself for an off-ramp. We'll have to see what that is. But right now we have a situation where the U.S. is coming around more explicitly in offering security guarantees to Russia, short of saying that Ukraine, and all these other states. You can't roll back NATO, he's saying, but we can come to some other deal. Okay. And as I said last week, let's make a deal.
The pipeline, Nord Stream 2, how does that factor into all that is happening right now? Germany is warning of serious consequences for Russia, including sanctions that would target that pipeline. As I understand, it's not operational yet, but
it was supposed to be operational in 2019, but there's some delays on regulatory issues involving Germany. Yes, what is it? This is a pipeline that is meant to bypass the overland pipelines that go through Ukraine and Poland in particular. They collect fees. They get a lot of money by the shipment of this gas. There's oil as well, but it's primarily natural gas from Russia to Europe. We have to remember Europe is far more interdependent economically than the U.S. The U.S. can say, why don't you guys, cut off all your relations? But Nord Stream is a very valuable source of energy, particularly for Germany, which is getting out of the coal business and the nuclear business. They need energy.
Right.
The question is, why is Russia moving now to make this a crisis? And one answer was, I think the answer was, it's the 30th anniversary of what he sees as the destruction of the Soviet Union, big catastrophe. But the other is, it's really cold in Europe now. Europe is realizing its dependency. It's a way to divide the EU, and that suits Putin very well. This is a pipeline under the sea. It bypasses, therefore, the land route. It goes under the Baltic Sea and pops up on Germany, and that's what it is.
Okay, we're going to stop here. When we come back, a couple of other things. The Olympics, Winter Games, open 1 week from tomorrow. So we'll talk about China and the Olympics. And the United States Supreme Court is back in focus with a pending retirement of one of the liberal justices. The most experienced liberal justice, Stephen Breyer, retiring. So that's a chance for President Biden to fill a vacancy on the highest court in the United States. So we've seen those battles in the past. What will this one be like? We'll ask Professor Tepper. It's The World with Professor Tepper. Rob Snow Show, City News.
Ottawa icon.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
No, Mr. Speaker. But, you know, since he asks about COVID restrictions, let me just remind the House, and indeed remind the country, that he has been relentlessly opportunistic throughout. He has flip-flopped from one side to the other. He would have kept us in lockdown in the summer, Mr. Speaker. He would have taken us back into lockdown at Christmas, Mr. Speaker. And it's precisely because we didn't listen to Captain Hindsight that we have the fastest growing economy in the G7, Mr. Speaker. And we have got all the big calls right.
I forgot to include that in our list of topics, Professor. Professor Tepper is back. Elliot Tepper from Carleton University. He's fighting for his life, Boris Johnson, and he calls Steer Kama is the Labour leader now, the leader of the opposition. Sure. He has taken to calling him Captain Hindsight. You are Captain. Oh, it's so easy to hindsight is 2020, and you are Captain Hindsight.
Yes. So, well, we talked about this last week a bit. It's Happy Birthday, Boris. What might finally bring him down, ironically, is a birthday party. Yeah. And the staff threw him a party. He went to the party, and he said he was assaulted by the cake. This led to all kinds of humor inside the UK about being assaulted by fish and chips and things. So Boris Johnson is in serious trouble, and the straw that might finally bring this to a head is his birthday party. His birthday. Yet one more party. What's fascinating to me is that he said we can't do anything. We have to leave this to our independent inquiry by the senior civil servant named Sue Gray. So, and she has said, I'm going to release my report. But meanwhile, I'm referring this to Scotland Yard, who referred it to the police to see if regulations were violated. So now there's a police investigation of the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom.
Yeah. He's in trouble. He's in a lot of trouble. The Winter Olympics open a week from tomorrow. Now, I remember the 2008 opening ceremonies in Beijing, and it was
they're spectacular.
Someone described it to me. This is a coming out party,
right,
for China to say to the rest of the world, we are a superpower.
Right.
So, what message does China want to send to the world with these Winter Games, because they've moved heaven and earth to put them on?
They have indeed. They've made the skies over Beijing turn blue, which took some doing. Yeah. So let's link our story. The big story is Russia and the possibility of an invasion of Ukraine, etc. While we're looking at Ukraine, we should keep our eye on other things, which is the Russia-China alliance, and it links right back to the Olympics here. The Russians are also holding naval drills off Ireland's coast, and one of the things that nobody seems to it got covered up, is that China and Russia, working more and more closely together, have been working with Iran, and they've been holding drills in the Gulf of Oman, another big oil checkpoint. So you've got lots of energy issues there. And Bloomberg reported that China, Xi Jinping personally asked Putin, please do not invade Ukraine now. I don't want my Olympics, stepped on by what you're doing. Of course, Xi Jinping denied that. So what we have now is a major effort by Xi Jinping to say we are part of this national rejuvenation. We are announcing, and this is the big appeal to our audience at home, look how successful the party is. And he's put his personal prestige on the line on this. He is moving heaven and earth, and the zero COVID policy might be interfering. But he's also telling the world, yes, look at us. We are the only country to have both a winter and a summer Olympics. And we are going to put on the show no matter what happens. The zero COVID policy, however, is interfering. COVID, the Omicron is now in every major city across China. It's also in all the ports. And also, as we're discovering, it has reached the borders of Beijing. So he's trying to hold this together as a way to support his legitimacy in that of the party, in order then to really build, and that's why whether this is a success or not is so important, to build toward what is really important to him. It's one element, one component of his campaign for the 20th Party Congress, which is coming up sometime the end of this year, where he will be confirmed, as he hopes, our leader for life of China.
Okay, but if you are a leader like Xi Jinping in a regime like that regime that has total control of the message, that heavily censors the internet, has the great firewall,
right,
and you invite basically the world to your games, to participate in your games. How I wonder how this country is going about controlling its message, its image of the country, Professor.
It's really remarkable that a country of 1.4 billion people can, and in our internet age, can have that kind of control. In fact, of course, the outside world seeps in no matter what. But when you put a surveillance economy, a surveillance state on the job, then you have an economy where the state picks winners and losers and can go after any threat to it. This party will not accept, even from the private sector, which it sponsors and backs, any threat to the party itself, as we've seen with even Jack Ma had to disappear for a while, and we've been talking about Peng Shui, a sports star, and there was a movie star as well who got. There will be no alternative voices accepted, no autonomy for that matter accepted from the party, and they are remarkably successful at it.
Yeah, something to see. Okay. So it broke yesterday afternoon. I don't even think it's been made official yet, but it's out there. Nobody's denying it. United States Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer is going to retire from the Supreme Court, 83 years old. He is the senior liberal on the United States Supreme Court. So here you have, it's one of the great opportunities of any president, is an opportunity to fulfill a vacancy on the Supreme Court. How do you see this playing out, Professor?
We'll have to. That's a really good question you've raised. The background for this is that Ruth Bader Ginsburg held on and would not resign, even though she had cancer. Then she did pass away. A great liberal icon, just a great avatar of what a liberal justice should be. Then, unfortunately, because of the obstruction of the Republicans, of Mitch McConnell, they wouldn't even hold hearings. And then we ended up with Donald Trump getting three appointments. And there was a lot of pressure on Breyer publicly, actually, as well as perhaps behind the scene. Don't make that mistake. Don't hang on, and possibly a Republican will come to power, and you will then have to leave the court. Let's get this appointment. Let's give Biden a chance to fulfill his commitment to appoint a black and African American female, and of course, in his image, another justice to the court.
Yes, but it's the timing, because
right.
It's the midterm year.
Yes.
Right. So they want to get this done. The Democrats, Biden,
exactly.
Even Justice Breyer himself, I suspect.
Yes,
they want to get this all nice and wrapped up in case they lose.
Yes. And
right.
And this is a big question right now. Can this appointment actually get through? The leading contender for it, Justice Jackson, who's recently appointed the D.C. Circuit Court, which is a traditional springboard to the Supreme Court. She was a clerk to Justice Breyer, so in his mold, we assume. Can anybody get appointed right now? It will take. I guess the real question is, can the Democrats mess this up? Which is, we've seen they can certainly do on other issues, and can the Republicans stop it? It does appear as if they will be able to get this through, but they will need to either keep their two maverick senators on board. That's mansion and cinema, and otherwise they have to rely on Collins and Murakowski.
Yes. There's a lot on the line, though, as well, I think, absolutely. Professor, for President Biden, because he, in some ways, he's kind of in charge of two Democratic parties right now. He has kind of the moderate Democrats, centrist Democrats, and then there's certainly a much more left-wing wing of the Democratic Party who feel that he has not lived up to the billing for them with things that
yes, and by fulfilling his pledge to appoint an African American woman, that may claw back some of that controversy. Yes. There's another story breaking, a big story, a blockbuster story broke about the Supreme Court. Jane Mayer of the New Yorker broke the story that Justice Clarence Thomas has a wife named Jenny Thomas, and she's opened up a consulting firm, and she's accepting money from plaintiffs, from people who are appearing before the court, either through an amicus brief or actually have cases before the court. Now, there's no, so far nothing has come of that, except suddenly we are aware that there is something not quite right going on. I don't think this passes the smell test. We'll have to see what else comes out of it. But we have a situation that sure looks like some kind of corruption. Wow. We have a situation now where the Supreme Court, one of the institutional pillars of American democracy, is being called into question by the obstructionist tactics of the Republicans and getting people on the court, and now this external factor. So I think the whole question of the future of democracy, particularly against autocracy, but the future of democracy in terms of the future of America, and of course we're so intertwined, we have to pay attention to that, is really on the docket when we talk about a Supreme Court appointment.
Okay. Thank you, Professor. Always interesting, sir. We'll speak next week.
Looking forward to it.
Professor Elliot Tepper from Carleton University. That's the Rob Snow Show. Back tomorrow, Friday Free for All tomorrow at 750-1310 at 10 o'clock. This is City News.
This program is brought to you by